Ready?
3, 2, 1, open a beer. And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to Drink to the Past.
Shit. I spilled all over myself.
The only podcast on the internet where Chris spills all over himself.
It's good beer,
you
too.
Bastard. How dare you? How dare you, Chris?
I drink it all up, but it's kind of spread all over.
Mm-hmm.
It's no good.
All right. I don't remember the link to my YouTube. Are you tweeting that? Okay,
yeah,
I'll
I'm
retweet
tweeting
you
that.
so people sees. Bum, 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 bum. Oh. There we go. There's some other guy on here called Shatter Spike, and I don't know who he is. All right. And as soon as you tweet that, I can retweet it, and there it is. Heart retweet. It has officially been retweet.
You're a retweet. I'm sorry. You're not a retweet.
Just a regular twat.
I'm already a mess.
Retweet myself too. Haha. There. Now we're extra live. We're live on Twitter and Twitter, except for actually just YouTube. Anywho, shall we get into the podcast now? So, sort of, more or less, we had our opening our beer, which is the sound of that is more beautiful than any other sound in the universe. So we've decided to make it our theme song. So now into the actual first part of the podcast, which is that this might be the end of me. I'm not sure. This is probably the second stupidest thing I've ever drunk on the podcast. I have a cocktail here, which so this is so all week long. Remember last week I talked about Burns Night a little bit, and one of the traditions at Burns Night is to eat haggis, as that was something of Robbie Burns's maybe not favorites, but he wrote about it because a lot of the inspiration for his poetry was just common life stuff, and so one of the things that common folk ate back in Robbie's time was haggis. So it's traditional at Burns Night to eat haggis, and I happen to have haggis still left over because every year my dad makes a bunch of haggis, and it doesn't all get used, so I end up coming home with a buttload of haggis, which is okay by me, because I like haggis. But I thought, oh man, how could I make a haggis cocktail? And I put this up on the internet, which was a terrible idea. So I see we have Seamus in the comments here. So he says, I gotta see this, because he knows what's coming, because he's the guy that tweeted at me that said I should... I tweeted something relatively innocuous, like, what should I do with this haggis for Drink to the Past? And he suggested that I marinate it in Red Bull and add whiskey. So this is haggis, Red Bull, and whiskey is my cocktail of the week. Welcome to Sean Drinks Something Stupid. It's called that for a fucking reason. If I die, it's your fault, Seamus. It
was nice knowing you while
still
you
smells
were
all
still
haggis-y.
alive.
The haggis smell has completely overtaken the Red Bull and most of the scotch. Or I didn't put scotch in it. What kind of? I don't remember what kind of whiskey I have. George Dickel. I don't know what kind of whiskey that is. It's like bourbony-ish. Anyways, down the hatch.
Well, I hope you don't die, because it'll be difficult to do
this
the podcast by
myself. This is not as awful as I thought it would be, but I would not recommend it. Mostly it tastes kind of like Red Bull with, like extra greasy Red Bull. I'm not a big fan of Red Bull.
Extra greasy Red Bull.
Yes, extra greasy Red Bull.
It's you. Well, you've made it worse, but does that make it substantially worse?
It does have a little bit of that haggisy flavor, which isn't bad, actually, because my dad actually makes pretty good haggis. Gets a lot of weird shit in there. This year he said he got some cow tongue and put it in there, so that's kind of interesting. This is something, all right. Wow. So, just in case you have not taken me seriously in all the times that I've said on Twitter or wherever that if you tweet a drink at me or if you leave a comment here on YouTube and tell me to drink something, like, this is proof that no matter how fucking stupid it is, I will drink it. We love having stupid drinks on here. That's why I made a segment out of it. Sean drinks something stupid. It's here every week, so come along. Sometimes it's a boring regular cocktail, but you can spice it up by suggesting something even dumber. All right. Yeah, that is weird. Not even really sure what to make of that. It's like meaty Red Bull. Like...
Well, I've got to... It sounds terrible.
It does, doesn't it? It's not as terrible as it sounds, but I'm not sure I would call it good. Certainly not as good as my haggis pizza that I made last night.
Yeah, like, that's at least food.
Apparently my facial expression is comical. Thank you, oh commenter. Alright, shall we get into the, what you playing? So what have you been playing, Chris? You're streaming a game here. What's this all about?
Well, this is One Step from Eden. It's a game I've had in the Steam library for a while, but I've only now gotten around to playing it. I'm enjoying it so far. It's still far too early for me to do anything other than give my first impressions.
I kind of have that problem with the game that I've been playing this week, and by this week I mean yesterday, because it came out yesterday, and that is The Medium, which I was super excited about, but did not really get a chance to sink my teeth into, because it's, you know, it's rated M, and I'm always, like, leery of M-rated games around my children, because my children are not an M-rated audience. So I was like, alright, I'll wait till they're in bed, no problem. And then my 4-year-old just kept getting out of bed and needing a drink of water, or I want a hug, or, you know, what... 4-year-olds come up with the most ridiculous reasons to get out of bed repeatedly, and it was not a particularly fun time, and he was not in bed in any amount of timeliness, so I did not get to play very much of this, and by the time I actually did get to play, I had been up for far too long, and the gameplay is not, like, boring, but it's slow enough that if you're tired and trying to play this, it is very easy to doze off, so I did not have a great time playing it, but that's no fault of the game itself. I just, like, feel like I need an actual time, you know, chunk of time to sit down and play this game. So, very early impressions are that this is a cool game as a showcase for the Xbox, because I'm running it on the new Xbox, obviously. It's actually Xbox Series X/Series S exclusive, and it's the first actual exclusive that I've played on the console, because mostly what I've been playing is technically Xbox One versions of games that also run on this, and occasionally I've played, like, Master Chief Collection, I think is the only game I've really played that's really enhanced for Series S. So this one is, like, I feel like the resolution is significantly better than most things I've played, even on the system, because it's actually made with, you know, this system in mind, and what really kind of steps that up is the lighting engine is super realistic, which is probably that ray tracing at work or some such, because that's the feature that they keep plugging. So I think it will be really cool to see this going forward. In some areas, the animation, I feel like you can kind of tell that it was done by a relatively small team, but it's not, like, bad by any means. So interesting plot so far. I'm digging it, so I'm excited to get back into that, but that's literally all I can say about it. So, you played anything else this week, Chris?
I've been back into Noida, which is always a fun thing.
Hey, Chips and Sticks is here in the comments. What's up, Chips? He was on our podcast, one of those episodes. We should get Chips on again one of these days. Chips, come on the podcast one of these days. Just got a chunk of haggis right in the... It's weird when you get a chunk. Most cocktails do not have chunks of haggis to accidentally hit you in the back of the throat like that.
I gotta say, I've always kind of been disgusted by the concept of haggis.
Well, it's very practical. Because...
I understand that it's not as disgusting to eat as it sounds, but...
You don't like heart, liver, and kidneys and shit?
Not too big.
Boiled inside of a stomach? That's against the FDA's regulations, so unfortunately you can't do that. Hey, we've got 4 concurrent viewers, which I think is up to our biggest live stream yet, tied with the last time we had 4 concurrent viewers, so welcome everybody. Yeah, Chip says he'll come on another time when he comes and gets another vacation day, so that'll be cool. Yeah. Anytime you're free on a Friday night, Chips. Love to have you back. Other than that, I've been playing actually quite a few games this week. I got back into A Link to the Past over the last couple of days. Just randomly was like, hey, I started a playthrough on my Super Nintendo Classic, so I'll try that again. And I beat 2 dungeons, I think. Thieves Town and the one before that, Skull Woods. So going back through those are 2 of my favorite dungeons in Link to the Past anyways. They're just super cool. Like thematically, because Skull Woods especially is like, I love that you're going inside and outside of the dungeon, and both of these kind of, like, part of the overworld is part of the dungeon, because you have to figure out which parts of the overworld connect to the other parts of the dungeon and stuff. So I think it's just a really fun design. And the other one, what else did I say? Thieves Town is kind of cool, because it's got that part where you're, like, searching for the maiden, because you heard a rumor that there's a maiden in the, trapped in there, and then you find her, and you're like, oh, okay, sweet. And she says, oh, take me outside, but... you end up having to take her to another room, and it turns out she's the boss in disguise, and you're like, oh my god! It's like such a clever thing for a Super Nintendo game. I feel like I keep seeing just a ton of things that surprise me that this is a Super Nintendo game. Seamus in the comments is also playing Link to the Past on the 4th dungeon in the Dark World, so I believe the 4th dungeon is right before where I was. I'm trying to remember what order they go in. But yeah, so I'll drink to Link to the Past. Ha! Link to the Past, Drink to the Past. It's like we've heard of that game or something.
Or something. Yeah, the thing that always bugged me about that dungeon was that you could actually leave at the entrance and the boss would just vanish.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. It's like, I led you outside, you stupid bitch. Why'd you go back to the jail? Also, let's see. Played a little bit of Halo 5 with my brother online through my the streaming app, which is actually kind of cool. Because with the Xbox streaming app, I was actually surprised that I could keep up with him on Xbox. And, like, every now and then I'd hit a lag spike, and overall it's like the stream quality has just enough input lag to be like, if you're paying attention to it, you'll notice it. And in a, high velocity shooter kind of a scenario like Halo, you'll notice it every now and then, just when you're trying to line up a shot and stuff like that. But it was still, like, playable for a good, 2 or 3 hours that I played with my brother. So I was like, I'm actually really, really impressed with the stream quality, even since the Xbox streaming app has come on. So, yeah. That's pretty cool. And Cyber Shadow came out this week. Have you played that, Chris? That seems like it might be up your alley.
Cyber Shadow. I have not played that. What is that?
It's sort of a retro style game in the vein of like Ninja Gaiden. So it's a lot of people compare it to The Messenger, which you played that one, I think.
That is one I still have on the list of games to play.
I thought you played that one, but
which
that's okay.
I remember us talking about that because that's same company has made.
Sabotage Studio. That is both of us kickstarted their second game project, which is due out sometime next year. Sea of Stars. Looks really sweet. But the Cyber Shadow is kind of a cyberpunk take on this idea, though, and it's really cool just going through this like kind of cyberpunk world and all that with the just the aesthetic is really cool. So far, I'm like, the story seems pretty basic. It's like some bad guy is like trying to kill your clan or something, and I'm like, why is there a clan of ninjas in Cyberpunk? I don't really care, but but the gameplay is really reminiscent of the original Ninja Gaidens, which I played a ton of the old Ninja Gaiden games. I had the original one, and then there was a collection of 1, 2, and 3 that released on Super Nintendo later that I played a little bit of. But I played a bunch of the original one, and never managed to beat that because that game was hard as balls. So this game kind of puts in checkpoints every now and then, so it's not as unforgiving as the original Ninja Gaiden, which I feel like that's just kind of a modern kind of that's how modern games work. They put in checkpoints every now and then, so you're not totally fucked. Like if it weren't for the checkpoints, though, I feel like this game would be at least as hard as Ninja Gaiden. Particularly, there's some areas where even with the checkpoints, I'm having to try 10 times or more, and some of that I feel like is just some of the enemies are annoyingly designed, and you have a very small hitbox with your sword. Although I've watched a couple of reviews, so it looks like as you go through, you get more and more techniques. I've got like barely any upgrades myself. I'm not very far in, so it seems like that might be a little bit counterbalanced by new upgrade techniques and stuff later. But then I'm like, well, what other enemies are they going to put in to make it harder later as well? I wonder how that's going to go. But so far, it hasn't been like insurmountable or anything. But it's been a fun challenge. And last but not least, I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima, which I was talking about the last couple of weeks, I think. And the more I play this game, the more I really fucking love it. Just exploring the world it just looks so good. I am just awestruck by the vistas, like even almost more so than Breath of the Wild. Just by like coming to the top of a hill and looking over, there's forest and mountains and boats off in the distance of the Mongolians attacking and stuff like that. It's really cool. And the story is also really kind of just epic in so many ways, even to the extent that like side quests are super interesting. Seamus brings up trying to find Koroks in the comments here. So there's not Koroks in Ghost of Tsushima. However, the first time I found a flower, I totally I was like, oh, there's a Korok under there. I walked up to it, and it turns out that flowers are a collectible. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And you like the more flowers you get, you can turn them in and get like dyes for your suits and stuff. So it basically makes it so you can like customize your gear with aesthetics and stuff. But it's kind of a neat collectible, and it really has a very similar feeling to collecting Koroks, because it's like just all over the world. You're just like, oh, there's one. I'll go grab it. Wherever you're roaming. So has a very similar feel to that. But like I was saying with the side quests, the stories in side quests are like way beyond what normal side quest stories are, where it's like, hi, I'm John the farmer and I'm out of wheat. Can you go get a wheat seed from Farmer Rick? And it's like, why do I give a shit? But the side quests in this are all like, hey, I heard a rumor that this ancient samurai ghost is haunting this forest. And you're just like, ooh, well, that's actually fucking neat. I'm gonna go check that shit out. So
the side quests actually make you
yeah,
care
and
about
it's
things.
you know, each one does a little bit of world building and stuff like that. So I think that's something that's very missing in a lot of open world games. So I am just having a ball with this game. Have you been playing anything else, or shall we move into the news and booze?
Other than this and an awful lot of Noida, I haven't been playing too much in the way, and PUBG. I haven't been playing too much in the way of other video games. I've been kind of haven't. I feel like I could broaden my horizons, which is what this is supposed to be the start of.
Yeah. So let's get into the news and booze. Netflix announces a new anime in production based off Tomb Raider, particularly the new reboot series. So, what do you think of that? Are you gonna watch a Tomb Raider anime produced by Netflix?
Well, if it comes, highly recommended. But I've never. I'm not that much of a Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I've never
fan.
played a Tomb Raider game. I liked the Angelina Jolie movies pretty well. They were fine. There's a side boob in one of them, and when I was 13, Angelina Jolie's side boob was like, oh my god, there's a side
Worthwhile.
boob. Yeah. So
When you were 13 and the idea of the concept of
yeah,
boob
it
was
was
still
like,
fresh.
dude, there's a boob, and you can see like 30% of it. Oh my god, look at my boner. Don't really look at my boner. Yeah, so I'm kind of hopeful for this. I really, really like the Castlevania series, so I think this could be kind of cool. I've been meaning to get into the Tomb Raider games, but just like too much to play, and I'm like, I never get around to it. I'm always like, when I'm always looking for a sale or something, I'm like, oh, Tomb Raider's on sale, maybe I'll get that, and then I find something else that I buy instead. So that is what that is. So here's a piece of news and booze that I actually skipped last week, was that Xbox Live announced a price increase. And I didn't look into this. I thought, whatever, they're increasing their prices. Not really news, right? But it turns out that actually they doubled their prices, was their plan that they announced. That it was going to be like, starting next month, Xbox Live Gold memberships are going to be double the price. So, instead of like a $60 yearly membership, you could have a $60 6-month membership. And the other tiers were suited the same, you know, but like double the price. And that's just for Xbox Live Gold, which is really super odd because it made Xbox Live Gold actually more expensive than a Game Pass subscription, which comes with Xbox Live Gold. So this was like a really weird thing. It's like, why would anybody pay for this, to pay more to play online and not get the Game Pass service along with it? And a lot of fans flipped their shit, and Xbox took it back like the next day. So they're just like, never mind, guys, we're not going to do this. The price is staying the same. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it go up sometime soon, but probably not that much. I'm like, this is so weird, though. Like, what?
It's a very strange decision. It seems like. Do you think you think the service became more expensive than they were expecting?
Maybe. I don't know, because a lot of people were like speculating that maybe it was just trying to push Game Pass and be like, hey, Game Pass is the better deal because you also get games with it, which makes sense kind of, but at the same time it's like, why would you make it more expensive to not get games with it? That's weird, right?
Yeah.
So, just a big what the fuck from Xbox. However, Xbox console sales, our next piece of news and booze, is still reported by Microsoft, are up 86% since the launch of the Series S and X in November. The company touts a $15.5 billion profit for the quarter. And the Xbox One apparently sold more units during its first 3 months on the market. However, Microsoft notes that they are limited largely by the manufacturing not meeting demand. So that's kind of a weird statement, I feel like, because theoretically that means they made more Xbox One units at launch than they are making Series S and X units at launch. And those met demand, maybe? I don't know. It's really oddly worded, and I'm just like, well, if the only reason that you're not selling as many is because you didn't produce as many, why didn't you just produce as many? Then you would still theoretically probably be selling out of them. I don't know. I'm not a businessman, but it just, like, from the outside looking in, it just seems kind of strange to me.
Is it possible COVID had something to do with the limited manufacturing?
Possible. They didn't note it specifically in the couple of tweets that I read. I heard about this story somewhere else, and now I'm thinking of where it was. And so I looked at, I think this was Microsoft the one tweeting this? Now I feel like shitty because I can't cite my source. Hey, Kevin's in the... How did Kevin get in here?
Well,
he is, but I didn't expect it, and now...
And he's not our usual interrupting guest.
Hey, Kevin's on Drink to the Past.
Surprise.
Yeah. Here, I'll...
Surprise, guys. I stumbled my way onto the drunkest podcast on the internet again.
All right, now I'm going to...
And it feels good to interrupt.
I'm going to...
So, cheers, gang.
Real quick, change some of the interface here on the live stream. That's no problem.
Sorry about that.
I'll just have to...
I'm going to interrupt with an interrupting story.
I don't know what's going on, but I'm excited.
I feel like we're not in control, and we just
accept it, Chris. Lay back and accept it.
So we have a thing with Ashley and I, Skip, who sends her regards. She's gone to bed now, but she sends her regards. Wants to come on the show again, of course.
Yeah,
maybe we'll interrupt at some point. Maybe she'll interrupt halfway through, just like me. But we have a thing that we call interrupting Pitbull.
All right.
Where there are songs that sound like a pop song that you would hear on the internet that sounds like Pitbull could show up at any point. So we'll have our own part where it's like, Pitbull shows up, and I'll start doing like a very terrible Pitbull impression that I'll save everyone's ears on for this. But
hi, anyway, hi. How you doing?
Hello.
Yeah,
I'm doing good.
Awesome. I love it when
I'm drinking a Maine special here, courtesy of Sebago.
Does that
Brewing
say Haze
Company.
Forward?
The Haze Forward.
Yummy.
Haze Forward IPA.
All right. I still haven't got into my beer yet.
They're really good.
I'm still drinking my ridiculous cocktail. So,
what's in it?
Red Bull, and that's not a good place to start, is it? So it's Red Bull marinated haggis.
It's Red Bull coffee.
And I marinated the haggis in Red Bull.
Oh, cool.
And then added whiskey.
Okay.
So this is one of the weirdest fucking cocktails I've ever had, but it's not as terrible as I thought it would be.
It sounds interesting.
Yep.
And now it's gone.
All right. That's enough meaty goodness for me. Yeah, because I had leftover haggis all week, so I threw it to the fans to be like, hey, give me a stupid cocktail idea, and they did not disappoint.
Oh, boy.
So...
I've seen your cooking online, and you were quite the chef.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd eat the plates that you're serving.
I've been... I feel like in the last, year or so, I feel like I've been upping my cooking game a little bit. I guess maybe the last, 6 months, particularly since I got the Legends cookbook, which is like a fan-made Zelda-inspired recipe book. Has all sorts of good stuff in there. And I've just been like getting a little bit more creative in the kitchen lately, so it's been kind of fun.
It's fun. It's rewarding. I have an Instant Pot. I have an Instant Pot cookbook, and I follow a few recipes online, and it's fun. It's easy. It's quick too.
My wife got an Instant Pot, and I've used it a couple of times.
It's cool, but honestly, I'm still a little scared about it because you plop stuff in there, and you're like, all right, time to set the bomb off, and then like 20 minutes later, you don't know if it's going to explode, and you have like a chicken in your face, or you just vent it like I've done every time, and everything's just fine.
Yeah, I was surprised because I made pulled pork from frozen pork in like an hour. And I was like, and it was like not
good.
bad. I was like, this is surprisingly good considering it took like an hour. And, you know, I mean, I make my own homemade barbecue sauce, which actually I've been putting on the haggis too, which is surprisingly good. Haggis and barbecue sauce. Like, yeah, I was at a festival a couple of years ago, and there was one of the food trucks there that had haggis and eggs as their breakfast special and smothered in barbecue sauce. And I was like, I never would have thought of that. That's fucking awesome. So, yeah. I'll get into my beer of the week. Is from Westfax Brewing Company, right down the street from me. So this is a Scotch ale to go with... hard to see there, but this is called the Tears of Our Enemies. So this is a cool Scotch ale can design.
The Lannister crest there. Lions, I forget the term for it. My family crest is 2 lions en passant, where they're like prowling, not necessarily like on their hindquarters.
Nice. All right. You want to stick around for some more news and booze? Let's get back into it. All right.
Of course I do.
Dave Malloy, the cinematic creative director, say that 5 times fast. I have to drink because I stumbled over my words. That's a decent Scotch ale, though. So he's the creative cinematic director for Ghost of Tsushima. Updated his LinkedIn page to include that he is currently working on the Ghost of Tsushima game for PlayStation 5. So this has sparked rumors that there's a PS5 exclusive Ghost of Tsushima sequel in the works. And I'm not sure if that really... I don't feel like that makes a ton of sense immediately. Like, it could be. Like, Ghost of Tsushima obviously did really well last year. I wouldn't be surprised if a sequel's in the works. But I feel like the way it's worded doesn't specifically imply a sequel. And with how they've been kind of bringing everything forward, I feel like it's more likely that they might have an enhanced version coming for PlayStation 5, or perhaps just like a patch for the current version Spider-Man. If you are playing on PS5 to just kind of, you know, make it even better. So that's kind of my takeaway from this. But it could be a sequel, and hey, I'll buy a fucking sequel. Actually, I'm liking this game so much. I'm like 5 or 6 hours in, and I'm like, if a sequel came out right now, I'd probably buy a PS5 for it. Right? Yeah, that's part of the problem. What do you guys make of this?
I feel like we're in an interesting, like, I don't want to call it like passing of the torch kind of moment, but we're stepping out of like the previous generation of consoles. So we're in that flux where it's like a lot of companies are doing like a lot of different things, where like one company could be like giving you this game for free but enhanced. Other companies are trying to like squeeze a little bit of extra money out, whereas like others are trying to like create new ports or start working on products to kind of like, you know, apply a game that they've already had but add it to like the PlayStation or Xbox like current systems. And then you get folks like CD Projekt Red who are trying to dip into every console they can, and just not working out. I see this maybe being more of like an enhanced port, possibly with some like additional DLC areas, bosses. And I think that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, I could see that, definitely. It would certainly give like a, you know, just be another cool thing to check out PS5 for, which right now I feel like they're a little bit short on. But
Do you get the Castlevania Legacy Collection for $5?
that's
PS4,
pretty big.
PS5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just bought that on Steam.
Nice.
$15. We got Mr. Link, Miss Skip's 3-year-old, playing the Dracula game. Can I play the Dracula game? But yeah, I'm playing Castlevania 1. It was great.
Yeah, I don't know how my kids would do with Castlevania. I don't know, because I've never been like a huge Castlevania fan.
It's hard.
Like they're fun. I've played a couple, but I've just never got into it for just whatever reason. I don't know. I never really had them as a kid, so it's like maybe it's partially just like revisiting them at this point in time is just a little bit like, you know, I don't have time to deal with the bullshit of old games. You know, I'm just like.
Yeah, the nostalgia isn't there, so it's like, why bother?
But right? I really dig the Castlevania animes, like I was saying
games.
Earlier when we were talking about one of our other things. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, because now they're making a, Netflix is making a Tomb Raider show. So that could be interesting.
Now, is it the show that's tying both eras of Tomb Raider together, or is that a game? I don't know. Something about that.
What I read from
like the modern, like, you know, survival Tomb Raider versus the part where you raided tombs in the earlier games.
I'm not sure. From what I read, it seems like this anime is based more off of the modern Tomb Raider, the reboot kind of games. Okay. Is what it sounded like.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. I haven't really played any Tomb Raider games, so it's another one of those series that I've just been like, I want to play one of these, and then I never get around to it.
Yeah, I think I own like 5 Tomb Raider games, and I've never played them. The closest I've gotten, like my closest exposure to Tomb Raider, was playing like not even playing, watching a few seconds of a friend play the Tomb Raider arcade game at Dave & Buster's. And you're like fighting off wolves and like you're on rail. It's like an on-rail shooter. It's a little like Time Crisis.
I played a shitload of Time Crisis back at the old movie theater that I wonder if they still have that machine.
We never had Time Crisis.
Yeah, Time Crisis was awesome. I used to play a bunch of that with my brothers. Like that was our jam, and Cruisin' Exotica was wacky ass racing game. So those are kind of the two games we played mostly.
Cruisin' was there too, yeah.
You always gotta love the light gun shooters.
Yeah, there's something about them. Like, I want that in my home. Like, I want a Time Crisis. Like, I want Time Crisis right here. Or House of the Dead, which the Wii version is pretty fun. I think you get 2 and 3 on one pack. Or you might get all 3. Those games are delightfully cheesy.
All right, let's go to our next piece of news and booze here. Roger Craig Smith announced on Twitter he will no longer be voicing Sonic the Hedgehog moving forward. He has voiced every video game appearance of the character for the past 10 years, and I believe he was also the voice he cameoed in both Wreck-It Ralph movies.
Yes. Yeah, he did both Wreck-It Ralphs. I was pretty upset about this. I wonder if we're going to get Ben Schwartz going forward. I don't know. I thought that was just for the
I liked
movie.
him fine in the movie. So, like...
We could always
just saw it
I saw it, like...
I got it for one of the boys for Christmas, and we all sat and watched it. He was so excited. He wanted to watch it again, like, the next day. But it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. It was the
last movie I saw in theaters. Before the pandemic,
Valentine's Day.
Because it came out, like, right before, pretty much. So that was... kind of the last hurrah for theaters for a long time.
It's been a year since Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie.
That kind of fucking blows my mind. Right? Yeah.
It's a good time, but yeah, it's saddening to hear that he's not doing the voice. And now I have to ask, because I'm not savvy on it. Sonic Boom. I know that I'm going to forget his name. He's married to Laura Bailey, and he is the voice actor of Knuckles. And he plays Grog.
Is he the...
Travis Willingham. Travis, I'm sorry. If you're watching this, I apologize, Travis. I know you tune in every week. Forgot your name. He did the voice of Knuckles. Who did the voice of Sonic in Sonic
I'm not
Boom?
sure. It's been a few different
Was it the
people
same?
over the years. When I imagine Sonic's
Yeah,
head,
Sonic Boom, I think, redid
when I
the voice
imagine
cast.
Sonic's voice in my head, I still think of the '90s cartoon with what's his name? Yeah,
With Jaleel White? Yeah, I do too.
The one that was on Disney.
No,
I watched
well,
it.
I think it's
It
Jaleel
was
White, like
on
Urkel.
like Fox Kids or
Did
something.
I do
Yeah,
that?
that's kind of what he sounded
Did
like.
I run fast?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I can't imagine either of those characters saying that. Unfortunately.
I like Jaleel White. Family Matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not savvy on Sonic Boom. Also, I think the most I've seen is the boys like Sonic
Yeah.
X. So we've watched.
Yeah,
those
I watched a lot of
I
that.
haven't
Like
really
that
watched that
was
much with
kind
them.
of in a generation where I watched a lot of cartoons, like in the beginning of high school. I think when I was just like, I remember I liked Sonic XOK for the first season, where it pretty much just followed the story of Sonic Adventure. Yeah, it's like
Adventure,
literally the
right?
same story as
Yeah.
Sonic Adventure, and then
Same
later it
characters.
kind of took a lot of weird turns and like because they ran out of Sonic Adventure to copy.
It
Yeah,
read
and
longer. It read longer than Adventure.
I think they went in some weird directions after that, and some of it felt like weird filler. Like, oh, they have to play a baseball game against
Yeah.
Dr. Robotnik. What? Okay,
There's so much baseball in
Right.
Sonic.
It's another thing that Sonic has in common with Dragon
he
Ball.
plays baseball.
Playing baseball, yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Piccolo in the uniform.
I must have
That's
missed that one.
classic.
I haven't watched Dragon Ball anything in a long time. I do remember like
That's some
Gohan
real
when he
filler.
went to high school for like 2 episodes. He like jumped 90 feet in the air to catch a ball or something, and then he was like, "Oh, I guess maybe I shouldn't do
Yeah.
that."
Yeah, you
Yeah,
should
like-
like tone it down.
Calm down, Gohan. You're a Saiyan playing baseball. It's not fair, man.
Yeah, that was the episode of Dragon Ball Super where they actually called in Yamcha because he's the only one who knows how to play baseball.
Yes, that's right. Super or GT?
Super,
Super.
the real one.
Yeah,
Hmm.
now I'm trying to remember that.
I don't know. I didn't get very far in Super. I got like
I don't know.
several.
I
I
watched
watched
it.
several episodes when it was airing on Toonami, but I don't know. I just didn't get into it. I was like past the point in my life where Dragon Ball was really hype, I guess, and it was just it was weird and slow, and I just really
like the
didn't like
movies.
Beerus. I was just like, he's just another jank.
It's-
Look at me, I'm more powerful than anybody you've ever seen for no fucking reason. Dragon Ball villain, I felt like.
Yeah, but that's
It
the whole
is.
show. Like that's and they like they fall
And
into that.
yeah, I
and,
guess that's
like,
maybe just my
they
problem.
poke fun at it too. Like that, you gotta like suspend. It's like watching wrestling. You have to
Right.
suspend your disbelief and be like, "Oh, great, they got the
Mhm.
Undertaker here. Like, what's he gonna do?"
Yeah.
That was a lot.
I guess at the same time, though, I was into One Piece, and One Piece is kind of guilty of the same thing. But at the same time, One Piece,
Oh boy,
One
I
Piece
can't get
also
into.
like references back to earlier points in the series. Once you get to a certain point, it's like, oh yeah, that happened, and it's like this surprisingly in-depth, interconnected story. But you really have to watch 500 episodes to start getting that. So
Yeah.
I can see how that would be a
Yeah,
turnoff,
can't
because
do.
you don't really get that payoff until you're like in the 300 episode mark, and then you kind of start getting an inkling of it. And now I'm like a little over 500 episodes
Yeah.
now, and I'm like, now I'm getting that a lot, like all the time. It's like, oh yeah, you're referencing back to that villain, and he did this stuff, and oh, he's related to him, and he met that whale, and it's just like all these sort of weird things. Yeah,
met
you
that
had
whale.
to, and you had to be along for the whole ride
You had to be there.
understand. You can't just jump in 500 episodes in. You'll have no idea what the fuck's going on. So I can see
Yeah.
why that would be a turn
I
off.
think Super,
but,
you
yeah.
could get in there and be like, you could be fine if you just hop into Super and it was like your first Dragon Ball and you were like, all right, I'll crack
That's
a few
fair.
beers
For a
and
new
watch the
Dragon Ball
show.
fan, I can see how
There's
it
like
might be
Goku.
pretty good. But like, I watched like
Goku's endearing.
I watched all kind of original DBZ.
It's like a dog watching a few squirrels.
There are things I like about Super better than I ever liked about DBZ.
Yeah.
I feel like the pacing is a lot better.
It's weird because, and this might just be me, because I've watched, all of Dragon Ball from beginning to end. But if you've watched the movies and then watched the show kind of takes the movies and like branches them out across like 10 or so episodes. And they change a few things. And I don't know if I was the biggest fan of that, because I had seen the movies and then watched the show like pretty soon after, and I was like, wait, I'm confused. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
So I don't know what's better. Watch the movies and then skip into that part in the show, or just watch the show.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sonic.
Well, who do you think is going to be the next voice actor for him?
I don't know. I guess, like Kev was saying,
than,
Ben Schwartz wouldn't be a bad
Schwartz?
pick. I liked him in the movie pretty well.
Yeah. Trust in Kev.
I don't think it's going to be D. Bradley Baker and he'll just not talk anymore.
I want Steve Blum to play Sonic.
Steve Blum, that would be cool. I would dig that. He does all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Yes, he does. Yeah, he does everything.
Yeah, I keep seeing ads lately for his. He also does like voiceover classes and stuff online.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite voice actors because like you can always recognize him.
He's great.
And it's just like, oh yes, and he does a great job in whatever he does. A few weeks ago, I started watching Star Wars Rebels, and he voices one of the characters in that, and it's like one of the best parts of the show because it's a little bit targeted under my age range, right? It's clearly meant for a younger audience. Like it's on the cusp of where I would almost straight up call it a kid show. It's like edgy enough that it's like maybe a teenager show. I don't know, but it's like.
Yeah, like the boys like it. Their ages
what I love
11,
about it though
so
is that
like...
Steve Blum voices one of the main characters, and also I think I watched like 10 episodes or so, and I think 9 of them had just an extra character that was also voiced by Steve Blum. It's just awesome just how much he just pops in as like a stormtrooper or a farmer or just whatever random shit they need. They're like, hey Steve, do this voice, would you? You're in the studio anyway. And that's actually, he does so much of that kind of stuff anyways, because he's like, there have been so many times in video games where I've just been like talking to a random NPC and it's like, that's Steve Blum, you know? He's
SWTOR. He's just random people in that.
I remember I recognized him once as in Doom 3. It was like, what? That's random.
Oh boy,
Steve Blum's here. Yeah,
that's weird.
And it's like but it's so cool.
If you pull him up too, like he's in everything. He's in Mighty Number 9.
He's in the Guinness Book of World Records actually as the voice actor with the most video game credits.
That is impressive. That's pretty awesome. I love him as oh no, I'm not thinking of Steve Blum. Never mind. No, I like him as Spike, but I love me some Cowboy Bebop, and I love Bo Billingsley. We were just watching a show called Last Exile.
I've seen a couple episodes of that.
And now Steve Blum is in the show. It's a great show.
Yeah, a buddy of mine is really big into that.
It's a good time. Definitely, like, if you can, like, rewatch it from the beginning. It's a good show. It's not too long, too.
Yeah, it's just one season or 2 seasons.
It's got Steve Blum and Bo Billingsley. Cool. So you have Jet and Spike from Cowboy Bebop, and main character is Johnny Young Bosch. Like, it's a good cast.
Yeah.
It's really great. A lot of voices that pop up.
Yeah, that was one I watched a couple of episodes when it was on when Spike TV used to have a anime night or something on Wednesdays or something. And I watched a couple of episodes of it there. And I was like, this is like, I dig the idea. But I think they they had a weird thing where they'd like play a couple of episodes from an anime and then they'd never play it again. They'd play some totally different show the next week. It was because Spike TV was weird.
Spike was weird, yeah, and towards the end too, like Spike was just like cops and like more cops. It's like
right.
G4.
But G4's coming back, apparently.
Yeah. G4 is coming back. I don't know. It's weird how my evolution of like consuming like gamer reviews has evolved. Whereas like now I kind of like I think I'm at that like internet have grown up with it impatience age and like tolerance of things to the point where like I can't be bothered to sit down and watch like 20 minutes of like pomp and circumstance for like a game review. Like, I don't care. I need like either it's got to be like 3 minutes and under, or like or an article that I could read for 20 minutes. I'll sit and read the article for 20 minutes. I won't watch a video. I don't know why.
I get that. I have the same thing.
It's hard.
Well, it's because reading you can tune in and out at your leisure, I think.
Maybe something.
Yeah.
And
I think,
video, you have to pay attention, and if you're not paying attention, I'm not sure if this is the ADD talking or if this is just how we function now as like human beings. But it's you like slip your attention away for a moment, or you go to look at something else, and you're like, oh shit, I wanted to hear what they had to say, so you have to go back and rewind, and requires like more effort to focus on. Yeah,
it's difficult. There's too many distractions in this world too. Like you just can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
And if there's a video that can do it, it's like you need to be able to make that commitment to like sit down and do that thing for like 30 minutes or an hour or so. Like I think of Xbox Ahoy, Stuart Brown, who does some like great deep dives into like obscure games that I have, well, not obscure, but like classic arcade games of yore that like I have never played, and I enjoy watching those, but I got to sit down and watch it for an hour, and I'll do it. It's different than watching like, I don't know, ACG do a review on a game. I love ACG, but sometimes it's hard. It's my fault.
Should we go into our next piece of news and boo? All right.
Yes,
Hideki Kamiya, who is the founder of Platinum Games, says fans should forget about Bayonetta 3 for now.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly what the context of this was. I got this off of Nintendo Everything, I think. So check them out. I think it was Nintendo Everything. Check them out for the full update exactly. But this is more or less what the quote was, and it's like it seems to be implying at least that there won't be Bayonetta 3 news for a long time. A lot of people are speculating that like some big shit has happened with the project, and I don't think this necessarily implies that, because we honestly have no idea how far along it was in production when it was announced. So it's like it could just be him being like, quit asking me, we just started on it 2 years ago, it's gonna be another couple of years, shut up. So it's so hard to get a read on exactly what he means by this.
Or why he said it.
Yeah, it's odd. This is also coming off the heels of Astral Chain getting like the full buyout from Nintendo from Platinum. I don't know if you guys caught that as well. Yeah, Astral Chain is now fully owned by Nintendo. Which I thought was more of like an obscure Switch title that didn't get like the promotion and marketing that it deserved. But I also have not played the game. I don't really know too much about it also because of that. So that being tied into this, and also Platinum being Platinum, where like Platinum could also just be like, we're not working on Bayonetta 3 because our entire team is working on Wonderful 102, or is working on like
near sequel or something.
some other licensed thing, like like the Platinum has made the a Transformers game, Legend of Korra game. It could be anything that could be occupying Platinum's time. So I never played Bayonetta.
Yeah, I've never played them either. I kept thinking about it when they remastered 1 and 2 for Switch. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great deal. And like now I think I've seen it used for like $20 at GameStop and whatever. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I should get that. But then I'm like, I don't have $20 right now.
I'll wait till free.
It's something. Yeah. It's like there's always been something. I'm like, oh, I should get that. That's a great deal. Except I specifically came here to like buy whatever I pre-ordered or an amiibo or some shit, and I'm just like, now I don't have $20. Fuck.
Yeah.
What you gonna do? Last piece of news and booze.
This is probably my favorite.
Yeah, this is the big one. So, Chris has a brief description that he wrote here on our topics, and then we can kind of go into it with basically what all of us know. Wall Street Bets retail traders decided to buy up GameStop stock in an attempt to make short-selling hedge funds fail. Brokers went in as far as to ban purchase of the stock for so far unknown reasons. Yeah, this is just crazy ass pile of stuff, and like this is like getting around all over the place. I was talking to my assistant about this at work the other day, and she is the last person I would expect to talk about GameStop, but she's fairly big into stock investing, so it's like, whoa, this is like crossed the line. I didn't think would be crossed. It's crazy. Yeah, it's just like blowing up. It's such a weird scenario too. Like, I think it's just hilarious that like even Elon Musk got into this and he was just like, hey, these guys have tried to fuck my company a bunch. And he himself, I think, drove up stock prices by like, 25% or something overnight, basically, just by buying up a shit.
When he tweeted it out, so I could give like a full rundown, but it would take a while on the situation. But long story short, the stock jumped from, I want to say, something like $10 a pop to $350.
Yeah, over the course of just like a couple days.
I think it's above that now. It's like
and I keep seeing different stories of people that were like affected by this.
300.
I saw one that there's like apparently this 10-year-old kid in Dallas, and like his mom bought him a couple of stocks of GameStop a few years ago, just as a little bit of an investment for like $10 a share, like, and then they were just going down, and they were like feeling hopeless about the investment, but they were like, it's the thought that counts or something. But then they exploded, and I guess they made like $5,000 profit or some shit. It's like, all right, that's a good, decent chunk for college or whatever. That's awesome for that kid. I'm like, oh yeah.
Or he's like got a new car. There are so many great memes with this in regards to like GameStop's kind of like policies on things where like, I invested and I have like, $5,000 worth of stock in GameStop, like, and now like they froze it on Robinhood, but GameStop will honor it as like, $5.15 trade-in credit towards a used game.
I gotta say, this is the first time I've made more than 25 cents off of any GameStop anything.
I have this thing with GameStop where I go in there and I'm like a unicorn to GameStop, like sales associates. And this is pretty great. I have like, I don't even know what it means, like 300,000. The number doesn't even matter. I have like infinitely many GameStop points over like multiple decades of GameStop purchases, and maybe like 16 or 17 years of GameStop purchases. It's not multiple decades, but whatever. I have many points, and they like it happens every time I go to buy a game. I bought stocks there the last time I was at GameStop, and they were like, "Hey, do you know, like, you're really weird because you have like a curbillion points, and you could buy this and get this subscription thing and do this." And I'm like, I only come in here like every 8 months just to like, piss all you guys off and make me worship my ginormous amount of points. Like, that's all I'm here for. I don't know what to do with it. They explain it to me every time, and every time I go into a GameStop, it's like once every 4 or 5 months or 6 months or so, and now it's been less frequent. So I go into a GameStop, and they explain their policy about how my stuff can like get me like, I don't know, like a golden goose or $50 worth of trade-in, or I subscribe and get some magazines or what have you. I can't keep them all straight anymore because over the years it changes. Every 5 months there's like some new GameStop finagled thing that's like, wow, you have 500,000 points, you could get a GameStop car now, and it's like, I don't want the GameStop car, sorry, I'll be back here when you upgrade me to like the jumbo jet in like a year or two. I'm waiting for the day where I walk into GameStop like 3 years from now and I walk out with my own private jet. Although I might not if all the stocks are worth all this amount of money now.
Yeah, you're playing the long game. I've always for a long time I used to just like cash in all my GameStop points at the end of the year and get Christmas presents for everybody that way. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get him a T-shirt, I'll get him a coaster set, just whatever random awards they were doing. Now they don't have any physical rewards, so now all you can trade it in for is gift cards and stuff, which is like every now and then I still do.
Watch. I could have traded in for stock options like 6 months ago, and I never did.
Nice. That'd be hilarious.
I love it so much. It's so ridiculous. It's not just GameStop, too, that this is a part of. It's like a subreddit, Wall Street Bets, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so Wall Street Bets is the thing that kind of kicked us off. It was a user called, I want to say, Deep Fucking Value, who went balls in, invested like, DFV. I want to say, $750,000 back when GameStop stock was cheap. Okay. I want to say around like 2019 or something like that. He has, so he's like a multi-millionaire now due to this increase.
Sure, yeah.
But the thing that gets me about this GameStop stock thing is that it got so bad that the brokers had to restrict trading for. There's more conspiracy-minded reasons.
Yeah,
my understanding is that so I've heard multiple suggestions as to why trading was banned or restricted.
And limited, to like 2.
The restriction, I think the explanation that's more likely to be correct is basically the clearinghouses that process those trades increased the amount they charge the brokers for them. So the brokers were just running out of money really fast, so they had to put the returns down to, not go bankrupt. And then there's also all sorts of shenanigans going on behind the scenes because there's a lot of money at stake, and it's held by some pretty wealthy people.
Yeah, that's what I see a lot of on Facebook, where it's like, that's my source of news for video games and wrestling. But I see like this side of it where it's like, hedge fund folks who are purchasing stocks off of like short sales. I want to use the right terms here.
Yeah, so
they're like borrowing. Yeah, they're like borrowing a stock and then selling it back, taking a risk and saying like, okay, yeah, I'm going to buy the stock from you and then buy it from you at 7 and then sell it at 10 and then I make a lot of money. So then like you get your 7 and you're safe.
So when you short a stock, you're essentially buying it. You're essentially selling it before you buy it. Mm-hmm. So you sell the stock. You borrow the stock. You have to
at a value that you determine. Yeah.
Yeah. and then you have to return that stock in a certain amount of time, because that's how that works. And then you hope to buy it back, and you hope to buy it back at a lower value. So it's a way of banking that the investment will go down. This exposes you. So this is, in a downturn, this can be a way that these people make money, is by hoping the investment goes down. GameStop is the most shorted stock on the market, or at least it was when this whole thing
not
began.
anymore.
Having more than 100% of the shares in circulation shorted by somebody. So that means more shares had been shorted by people than could be brought back, which is insane. I won't get into the details.
There's a movie about it with Christian Bale and Bradley Cooper. If you're confused, go check out The Big Short. That movie was awesome. Yeah.
The Big Short.
The Big Short. I have not seen The Big Short. I just linked, for the benefit of us here on this glorious podcast, a screen grab that explains it at like a lower than 5th grade level to me. Like, I was just like, I'm not getting it. Like, why does this not make sense to me? Because everyone over-explained it.
So,
and I read this and it was great. I could read this verbatim if we'd like.
So, I got my explanation that I'm doing here. So, a short sell.
Yes.
So when you're shorting a stock, you are exposing yourself to hypothetically unlimited risk, because you can short a stock when the price is 20, and then you can hope to sell it at 10, and hope to park at $10. But if the stock goes up to, say, $3,000, you're out $2,800, and there's no limit to how high a stock can get.
It feels like you're like betting on the weather with no analysis of what the weather is going to be like. You have no concept of what winter is, but you're betting for like sun and like rain.
So in this case,
snow.
Shorting GameStop in more normal conditions might not be so stupid for an institutional investor who can expose themselves to that kind of risk.
Sure.
But the fact it was so shorted left them open to this kind of tactic where they just buy up the stock. They buy up as much of the stock on the market as they can, and then they just hold it, driving the price up.
Yes. I've seen this happen in MMOs.
Yeah.
That's how we paid for an entire guild ship in SWTOR.
MMOs are kind of funny in how well they represent economies.
I always thought that was interesting, just like reselling shit on the auction house in World of Warcraft. It was like, especially on different servers, where I was like, I have the same profession on 2 of my characters on different servers, and it's like, how come leather sells for so much more on this server? The other server, nobody gives a shit.
Because people in Italy appreciate their leather more than in Germany. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's called cabotage. I don't know.
All right. Shall we get into our table topic, or is there anything we really want to say on the rest of this?
There's, other than I find this stuff really interesting, but it is nerd. It's like incredible nerd talk and not of the normal, like, we're game kind of nerds kind of thing. I died.
Oh no. I didn't really know what you were doing here, but it looked really cool.
Yeah, I swapped over to Noida. It's easier to concentrate to play this game and talk than that other game.
Well, like twin stick shooter here.
Yeah.
While we get into the tabletop of the week, I want to grab another.
That is not a bad idea, because we've actually talked like longer than I expected, because we accidentally had a guest, which is awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I might have to get up in a minute after the table topic or something. So you go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna go.
All right, and we will introduce our table topic here. So table topic for the week is it worth customizing the minutiae of NPCs / enemies / bosses? So this is kind of coming from a perspective of a GM. So if you're GM in a game, is it worth customizing the minutiae of NPCs, enemies, and bosses? Or is it better to just throw in some neat sounding abilities with appropriately scaled damage numbers and wing it? Which is, because I've known a lot of DMs that have customized the minutiae of every single NPC that you ever come across. And myself as a DM, if you come across an NPC, I will look up in the DMG of just any commenter, and that'll be it. I don't care. And if you're fighting an enemy, I give them an appropriately scaled damage number, and I wing it. That's just the way that I do. I'm just like, I make up these weird bullshit attacks, and I give them appropriately scaled, like, attack modifiers and damage. And that's just kind of how I design stuff. So do either you guys kind of go the other route, or somewhere of a middle ground, or where do you stand on this?
Well, I'm gonna start with the old cop-out answer, it depends, and then go into detail about it depends on what exactly. So I think in complicated systems like 3.5 and Pathfinder, you get way more benefit out of using your method, where you just, because they already statted out, thousands, tens of thousands of monsters, and you can look them up for free on the internet instantly, and if you just need something kind of unique, you can, like, give one monster another monster's, like, one of their special abilities or
swallows
something,
you whole.
and then you're just good to go. Yeah, so, yeah, shit like that.
Puts the hole in the holder.
Yeah, that's the beholder. I think in complicated systems, you're more benefited
I think
from
we still have to
quickly
drink for puns. That's a
swapping.
rule, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Fries
I'm
leap.
drinking anyways. I don't care if it's a rule.
Oh, yeah, I'll
Fries
drink
leap.
to that.
Ooh, got a new beer.
It's a good one. Yeah, this is like their standard.
Sweet.
It's really nice on tap.
Now that I think about it, we all forgot to rate our beers. So this Westfax Brewing,
We even forgot
we
to
did.
introduce
Who am I?
ourselves.
Who are you? Why are you people here? I guess we introduced Kevin because he came in like part of the way through, but we only sort of introduced him. It's like, this is Kevin, and he's here.
Yeah. Oh, Kevin's here. Oh, he's wearing purple.
So this is
again.
Mr. Kevin O'Rourke. He's Mr. Shabazzle himself. You can check him out on other stuff. We'll plug ourselves more on the end of the podcast. Of course, we have our glorious co-host, Chris, the glorious co-host, Audette.
Hi, I'm Chris. Apes Together Strong. On
And,
that.
of course, myself, Sean Michael Patrick Spamo Man at your leisure. Or whatever the hell my name is. I don't know. I'm having an identity crisis. I'm like, am I Spamo Man? Or am I Sean Michael Patrick Thompson? I don't know. But I'll certainly drink. Either way. So, yeah. I have basically the choice between Westfax, Tears of Our Enemies, which is a Scottish ale. Because I went specifically to get a Scotch ale to go with my haggis that I've been eating all week because I have a bunch of leftover haggis. But we've been over that. So I had a choice between this and Old Chub, which is a Scotch ale from... What's the brewery in Lyons, Chris? It's up in Lyons.
What
There's
is up
one
in
brewery
Lyons?
in Lyons. Anyways, Old Chub is their Scotch. Oscar Blues is the name of that brewery. Yeah. Yes,
Oscar Bluth
Oh god.
from
Oh, I'm gonna die.
from Arrested Development.
No, from Lyons, Colorado.
Oscar Bluth
Is
is
he?
a character from
Okay.
it. Oh, Oscar Bluth is a George Bluth's brother from
Huh.
Arrested Development.
Neat. I wonder
I
if
don't know.
there's anything
I was
in the
thinking
naming
of,
there.
Joe
I have no idea.
Bluth.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Was Oscar the younger brother? No.
They were
Yeah.
twins.
Oh, I never watched that far into the show. I think I only watched
It's
season
Jeffrey.
one.
It's Jeff. Yeah, he's in season 2. I think it's Jeffrey Tambor's twin brother.
Yeah, I never watched that show, but Oscar
Uh-huh.
Blues is very
It's a good
locally,
time.
very well renowned in Colorado as kind of one of the breweries that really pioneered craft brewing in the state. And they've gone out of their way to help other craft breweries kind of get started, kind of give them guidance as they go, help them get canning machines. They are the inventor of the crowler. I don't know if you guys have crowlers up where you are. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love crowlers too. They're like a big investment.
And so these guys are like, they invented the crowler, and they like came up with the idea that you could just have a machine to can one beer at a time in a largish size, and they started this, and they started kind of by calling other breweries up and being like, hey, we have this idea. You want this canning machine? We'll help you figure out the finances. We'll help you figure out the logistics and all that kind of stuff. And really, they're one of the most important pioneers of the Colorado craft brewing scene. So, I think overall I like their Scotch Ale better than this, but there is definitely a place for this Westfax one. Westfax is another local brewery, actually very close here. They're on like Colfax and Sheridan. So if you've ever heard of Casa Bonita out here, it's right next to that. So it's this is a pretty good one. It's a little kind of lighter on the characteristics of what I think make a Scotch Ale a Scotch Ale. But there's a place for that because it's a lot easier drinking, because it's like, this is only a 7.1, whereas Old Chub is 8%. So it's like,
okay,
they have a lot of the same characteristics. Obviously, they're very malt forward. They're very good texture. But the Old Chub is like almost chewy with how thick it is. It's so good. I'd rate it a little lower than that, but because you can actually maybe session one of these, I'm like, I'll accept it. I understand what you're going for.
Oof.
So it's very good beer. I will rate this I'll go 14 on our scale of 3 to 17. Chris, what are you drinking? Have we even gone over what you're drinking? You drinking a left-hand milk stout again?
Haven't. It's I'm doing another IPA. Kind of on IPA. Juicy Freak, also from Denver Beer Co.
Juicy Freak.
Which I'm actually kind of liking a lot better than the IPA I had. I guess I was like, the last IPA was what I would consider like very much like the platonic ideal of an IPA, but this is it's almost nice and mild. Okay. I want to say for an IPA,
that can be good. Yeah. I haven't had Juicy Freak for a while, but every now and then I get the Denver Beer Company mix pack. So I've had it enough times that I should probably be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that tastes like, but I don't because I drink so much other shit. Yeah.
Huh.
But generally they make good stuff, and I've had Juicy Freak and I remember liking it, so there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Juicy Freak is...
What do you rate that Juicy Freak on a scale of 3 to 17?
Is it super freaky?
It's for a beer called Juicy Freak, it's actually very, very mild. I'd say I'd probably rate it a 15.
Pretty good.
It still has the hops, it still has the bitterness you'd expect from an IPA. It still tastes like it's just but nice flavor.
I feel like I've probably had one of those on the podcast even, and I don't remember what I rated it.
I feel like I've had that out here.
Maybe. Denver Beer Company is a pretty big craft around here.
They make it around.
I wouldn't be surprised if they distribute out that far, yeah.
This can seems familiar, too. I just did a little googly search here. I think I've had Juicy Freak before, and I give it a thumbs up. Like, if it is what I'm thinking, I've had this, and
nice.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
What would you rate your...
Denver Beer makes its way out.
What would you rate your beer there, Kevin, on a scale of 3 to 17?
So I've had two, and I have a third that I could have, too, a session IPA.
See how long we run.
Fries Leap. Yeah, for real. You never know. Maybe we'll squeak a Commander game in this podcast.
You know what? I still have my fucking dinosaurs right here.
I need to see this. Please pull out all the top loader. You showed the case off too.
Yeah.
This is great. I sorted all of my decks out into this box on the counter there that you can see. I have 10 decks in that one. It's a Innistrad gift box. I don't think they make
that's
it
probably
anymore.
about the same size box as this, but I've only got one deck in here.
That looks about right. Yeah, but I have 10 or 8.
There's my. Let's see if I can pick it all up at once. I'll be impressed. Ooh, there you go.
It's Geishath, right? The Naya
Gishath,
dinosaur guy.
Geishath, I'm not. Yeah,
Gishath,
Sun's Avatar. He's a really
tomato.
awesome general. When I first saw this guy, first of all, I was impressed because as a fucking dinosaur nerd I am, I recognized that he, because a lot of people are describing him as a T-Rex. He is not based off of a T-Rex. He is based off of a South American cousin of the T-Rex called the Giganotosaurus, which is often mispronounced as Gigantosaurus, which actually there's even a cartoon about a Gigantosaurus that my kids watch, which is hilarious because it's got nothing to do with the Gigantosaurus. It's called Gigantosaurus.
Okay.
Yeah, which is odd though, because it mostly follows this pack of 4 unrelated dinosaurs, and they're all totally anthropomorphic dinosaurs, except for the Gigantosaurus is just this guy that just wanders around doing dinosaur shit. He's not even a main character. He's just he's in most episodes, but he's not important. It's so weird. I'm yeah.
Clifford's a
but
big
also
dog.
He's got a really awesome he's just a really awesome general, and I figured, what if I just
he's a powerful one too. He is his ability, his mana ability is pretty powerful.
As soon as you get him out and just start swinging every turn for free dinosaurs, I'm all right.
Yeah.
So
he's a really good.
So pretty much my strategy is I play Gishath as soon as possible with a buttload of mana ramp, and then I start punching you in the face for big general damage and free dinosaurs. And it's very successful. I think it's probably the most successful EDH deck I've ever built. So it's a ton of fun. What were we talking about?
We were talking about me introing my beer, but I have another Magic segue that
I'm sorry for everybody who came here for beer, but you're going to have to suck it because Kev has Magic cards.
This is fine. I have so many Magic cards. It's great. And I have more on order. This is special too because this is Magic and D&D. And it may not look like it here, but it is. This is a party, my first D&D party. We did not have tokens. We did not have a map. We had no overlays. We had no whiteboard or anything. We had Magic cards that I pulled out that defined who we were in this game. We had our Ranger, our Paladin, Fighter, and a Barbarian. And we used Magic cards to denote where we were on the board, which was
that's cool.
A table. And we used that to measure where we were fighting people and such. It was cool.
I have never seen that cause of death before.
Yeah, I have also made a couple of edits since the last time I played, but I haven't been able to use them because I haven't hardly played Magic since the pandemic. So I have a few of these Godzilla cards in here.
Oh, the Godzilla card, yes.
A few of those.
That's the toughness card,
this
right?
One,
your damage is toughness instead of power?
No, damage to your creatures is dealt to their power instead of their toughness. So he's a 7/3 himself, so you have to hit him for 7 damage, even though his toughness is only 3. Yeah, so
I like that a lot. I think that's pretty powerful. And that's a rule card.
That one particularly doesn't really play into a lot of my decks kind of things. It's a couple of my cards benefit from it, but at the same time, I get to fuck you up with Godzilla, and it's awesome.
There's some big stomping dinosaurs too that can block. This is an invite coming out here. I have had talks with another guest on this podcast, Mr.
Oh,
Get
yeah.
Blue Hawk,
Check out Taylor Wells.
Mr.
Yeah.
T. Wells. We've been in the works of playing with our good buddy Sean.
Not me, the other Sean.
With playing Commander, yes. Mr. Sean G. With playing Commander through Tabletop Simulator.
Okay.
Where if you give me a deck list, we could possibly play in a game and dish out some commanders.
Cool. Do you have Tabletop Simulator?
I do not, but it's been a thing that I've heard about enough that I've thought about it, so I could check it out.
Yeah, it's cool. It's easy to play too. I have a few like commander tables, and I can import decks real easily. Anyway, I'm drinking a beer.
What?
I'm drinking Fry's Leap, and I bought the like combo variety pack. It's a Fry's Leap, Haze Forward, and Session Simmer IPA, Simmer Down Session IPA. Nice. And they're all really good. I'm going to rate the Fry's Leap at a 15.
Hell yeah.
On our scale. It's really good. I think it's like most beers. It's better on tap, but it's good out of the can. I enjoy it. It is like it's just a good IPA. It's enjoyable. It's their like go-to IPA. I enjoy this more than a lot of beers that I've had in New York. This is a main special here. The Haze Forward is a nice hazy IPA. It does its job. It's all right, but this is a nice IPA.
All right, I'll drink to that. Sweet. So back to our table topic. Is it worth customizing all the minutiae of NPCs, enemies, and bosses, or just throw in some neat abilities? And
I think we're up to me.
What do you think about this? Do you DM much?
I don't DM much, but when I do, I go overboard. So I'm in the camp of plan for everything and anything. And like, even if it's just the thought of, so like, I think good DMs don't necessarily need to write everything down. But at the same token, like, I like to take the Obsidian Fallout approach to things, whereas like they'll look at a camp of raiders and be like, how do they sustain their population? Do they farm? Do they trade? Do they do this? Like, why are they here? I planned a battle royal session that was one map that was used. I had 5 prepared. And I had motives for bosses, characters, NPCs, and separate layouts for other bosses, 10 of which never made it. And they never were going to either. Only one of them was going to. At one point, I was rolling to see like what boss would show up, and then like making tweaks on the fly. But I like planning all those things out to have like my own lexicon that I can fall to as a really just as a dictionary to DM with. And I don't DM very often, but I'm of the mindset of, you know, taking like you have your textbook gnolls that show up, but why are these gnolls here? What do these gnolls do? Do they maybe speak another language because they're close to elves? Why do I have Triton that could be nearby? Like, have they traded with Triton? Are they tolerant of them? I think of like all the political faction stuff between them, and I think of like I especially like to think of languages. I think that's kind of an unsung character trait where I look at my party and that kind of like decides on things like language and culture. where it's like, okay, like I have Triton characters that are here in this campaign or this one shot, and I have like elves that might be nearby, or like I have like homebrewed shape-shifting werewolves that are also Tritons. You know, they're wolf fish people. I don't know. Anything that comes to mind. I over prepare and I love it for it because the rewards have shown for being someone that, in my case, over prepares and can adapt. I think if you over prepare and you like fall into a contingency that a player like may have like gotten to, where it's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to talk to the vampire and see what he has to say, and it's like, oh well, let me turn to page 55 of my preparation notes and be like, yes, I am the vampire, yes, you're a Triton, I'm going to talk to you about this. That stuff, you can't do that. You can't do that in any kind of role-playing game. You need to adapt on the fly. With that being said, if that vampire dies or becomes a friend for some reason, I have a backup of like 3 or 4 other things that could happen, like a vampire's ex-lover that appears, or the Wolfman that
So
was the butler all along.
I think you took the question in a way that I wasn't necessarily even thinking of, which was not just like the stats of NPC monster with vague personality traits, but in terms of like culture, social structure, all that sort of thing. And I'm like a lot, and I feel like a lot of that stuff, especially if you feel like you're going to get a lot of mileage out of it, is worth putting the work into.
Yeah,
can be a lot of fun. I did that with one of my more recent campaigns that I've been running. That was and is still being ran and is more of a long-term campaign, kind of on hiatus due to COVID.
Yeah, I build a lot into it, like subconsciously and like purposefully too, where like I have a lot of like vampire horror stuff that I'll build into things, and like Irish mythos
But
that is fun.
what I will say is that in terms of actually preparing stuff about that stuff, I would tend to not plan out any outcomes whatsoever. Just be other than being aware of what might happen.
Yeah, one of the things I kind of do with
I am the opposite. I live off what ifs in D&D, or I mean, for me, I'm playing D&D, but yeah, like just what ifs at a loose level of being like, what if this person did this, or what if this person did that, and on the flip side, like I'll also have like kind of predetermined things where it's like, yes, these are orcs, but these are orcs that have like the same kind of like cultural backgrounds and like beliefs of things that are based off of like Chinese civilization that I've read about from like 200 AD. Or like these are kind of similar to Irish people like in this time period, or like Ulster legends of like, elves that are actually acting like the Ulster cycle and following like, legendary heroes of things that have happened. I think that far in advance, where it's like, they're very proud of these warriors that have existed in their, in their culture. Or like I'll go left field with it and be like, these guys are a lot like the Klingons from Star Trek, who like care about Kalis. And
so it sounds like you're the sort of person who'd really enjoy something like I linked this blog in our Discord here, but I'll read out the title: "A Collection of Unmitigated Pedantry," where that's
Yeah, that's
Uh,
it. I care about all that way too much.
Which it's
Like, why are the people at the tavern dancing? I care about that so much.
It's got a lot of the kind of the historical elements examining fiction.
Yeah, with enough to not get in the way, too. Like, all that could exist in my brain, and it's not going to affect.
That's kind of how I am as a DM, because as I said, like, when I'm designing the stats, I'm a little bit lazy about it. I'm like, okay, I designed this monster, and I'm like, you know, it's a regular-ass monster, right? It's just there's a bunch of them in the dungeon because that's how that works.
Here
okay,
are the gnolls.
It's got, like, regular stats, it's got, like, regular HP, and then the boss has a buttload of HP and cool, badass stats and stuff
what if they cast cold spells?
Yeah, but that's kind of what I get into, though, is like the motive behind the boss.
It's fun.
And a lot of the culture, because one of the things that I really like designing as a DM is the culture. So that's something that I kind of focus more on rather than the stats.
Why do your kobolds worship a dragon?
Stuff like that.
Do they realize it's not a dragon and it's actually a dragonborn on stilts? Like...
Yeah,
you know,
I actually created a Legend of Zelda campaign at one point that Chris actually played in for a little while, and I actually had a lot of fun kind of thinking about some of the just like random things that I was putting into the cultures in that, my dungeon ended up being underneath the Kakariko graveyard because we basically did this as a kind of a round robin like DM thing where like I would create a dungeon wherein my character would be the main character and we were all basically the sages that were powering each other up to get magical abilities to assist Link in killing Ganon. That way you didn't have to worry about like who's going to be Link, right? Or something like that. You know, who's the main character? Because in a D&D campaign, that it doesn't really work to have one main character. Right? Yeah. And so my dungeon was underneath the Kakariko graveyard. And so designing this graveyard, I was just like... I had some ideas in my head, and I was like, okay, what if there's just grave after grave after just a shitload of graves, and they're just like every 5 feet is a grave, and I'm like, well, it's not big enough to really bury a person, is it? And then, hold on, unless you bury them.
They were Kokiri.
Now that would have been funny too, right? But no, I was like, what if they buried their dead vertically? And then I was like, okay,
interesting.
Now why would they bury their dead vertically? And that gave me...
Because of the Sun Song from the Composer Brothers that guides them towards the
I feel like I had a reference into there somewhere, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But the reason that I came up with...
I'm thinking of Mr. Dave.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast a few times too. Go check him out. Eventually you'll be able to buy his book.
I think he'd have something about that.
He's a cool guy.
Yes. I think he could have a few things about the Composer
Bros. But the reason that I came up with was like, I was like, how can I relate this to the actual culture of Kakariko? And so before I introduced the players to this, I like was kind of putting them on this path towards you have to go into Kakariko Village in order to get, you know, a little bit of information on where the dungeon might be. Then you find it's in the graveyard. And when they went into the pub to search for information, they found there's no chairs at the pub because it's just this traditional thing that the Kakariko stand with their comrades as a sign of respect. And that's why they bury their dead vertically, so that eternally they may stand with their comrades. And these kind of weird details...
I was thinking you stand vertically to make your shadow as tiny as possible. Shadow Temple in Kakariko Village?
Actually it was the Earth Temple was my element, so
it's kind of same deal.
So that would have been interesting too.
I think of the Earth Temple from Wind Waker.
I took some of the cues from that because I did some fun light puzzles and stuff in the dungeon, and actually the dungeon I also partly based off of the Skyward Sword dungeon where it's like a slide puzzle in the Skykeep. And you have to slide it around. But instead, I kind of took that concept and applied it to... I made the dungeon like a giant Rubik's Cube, where there's like 4 layers of the dungeon, but you can rotate them in order to figure out in order to,
This is too
yeah,
deep for
in
my
order to
party,
like
but
get the light down from the
I
surface
like this.
to the bottom floor in order to open up the boss room and stuff like that.
Oh man, I want to
All
play this
right,
right now.
I'll go dig up my notes next time. Yeah, next time you're available, let me know
Oh
and
my
we'll run
gosh.
through this dungeon. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm loving this. I think also too, I just want to point out that the Wind Waker Earth Temple, I think, applies more to like a D&D setting than the more of the gotchas of like the Shadow Temple, where it's like, oh yeah, there was a thing, but it was invisible.
Right.
So yeah, you
Yeah.
found it. Made an investigation check with your
Right.
lens, and you found it. Whereas like a puzzle that's ever shifting and using the light sounds way more fun.
Let's see. So, if I'm coming from with a takeaway here, far away from another point I wanted to make, but probably a more important point, is that the thing about NPCs and monsters isn't the important stuff about that isn't so much their stats as it is their kind of why they're there and how they function, their behaviors, how they interact.
I think
with the
that's
players.
a little bit. Yeah, that's kind of right on the nose because I'm going to reference another campaign that I
Their
DM'd that
environment,
actually,
too.
Chris, you were in this campaign, and maybe you can kind of see where I'm going with this. I created a Ragnarok campaign where basically I was just going to pit the gods against each other and see what the player characters did. And this is kind of the whole basis behind this. So in order to do this, I created this whole pantheon of like some of the gods work in the day and some of the gods work in the night to keep this ancient evil asleep, right? And
Sounds like the latest Magic set.
I haven't kept up with Magic very much.
Yeah, Chaldean, that's the Viking set.
I'll have to check that out.
You tied in perfectly.
But yeah, it's basically I kind of created this pantheon, and I wasn't really sure how I was going to get them to fight. But I created them with their individual personalities. All the gods have, like, basically the world is segregated into countries, and every country's government is led by one of the gods, is more or less kind of how this world works. And there's, like, lesser gods, and there's, like, ridiculously powerful gods. And I didn't tell any of the players which ones were which. So it's like, at any point, you can go fight a god. And if you kill him, you get his divine ranks. But there's a chance that you'll just piss off the wrong god and he'll one-shot you because he's got like 20 divine ranks or something, and he'll fuck you up. So this is kind of the basis I did this on. And I didn't really come up with an idea of why the gods were going to fight. And then the player characters just accidentally made it happen. And it was kind of hilarious. Just the way that they played, they were just like somebody, I think actually I rolled on my random encounter table, and Chris, you were accused of a crime, and my brother Dan was playing with us, and he like deflected and said, oh no, it was these spies sent from this other country. And then that sparked a war between those two countries, and because each country has a god as its leader, that sparked Ragnarok. And now all of the countries are kind of like teaming up, who's gonna, have these allegiances. And it was also kind of cool because I had kind of these gods of the light and gods of the dark. And so the gods of the light are like in charge during the daytime, and the gods of the night, or the gods of the darkness are in charge during the nighttime. And so there's mostly their kind of butting heads, but there's particular gods that like are allied like between them, depending on what their personality is, how they have known the other gods and stuff like that. So like particularly there's two gods that are brothers that actually haven't come up in the campaign yet, but at a point when they do, they would ally with each other despite whatever is going on with Ragnarok. So stuff like that. And I thought it was just it really helped too to kind of solidify this because of a particular adventure where one of our characters was like really just wanted to get down to the root of the matter, and for some reason you guys had to go visit the god of the dragons, and you you were all like walking there, like taking the scenic route, is how Chris described it, is what our group likes to do. And we got a new player, and he kind of had a different idea, and it's fine. You know, every player is going to play different. So we're like, okay. And he's just like, I just teleport us there. Boom, we're there. And I was like, not prepared at all. I was just like, what? I thought you guys were going to be there for like, I was like planning you guys were going to be traveling there for like, 4 or 5 sessions, just like walking there, and he just teleports you there instantly. And I was just like, okay.
Someone counterspells your teleport.
That would have been uninteresting, but I kind of like to keep player freedom up as well. I just like, if you have an idea as a player, I want you to do it. But in retrospect, I think we talked about this later, Chris, and you didn't even notice. You didn't even know that I was like totally taken off guard by this, and you thought the session went like totally normally, like I had prepared for you guys to talk to Bahamut and everything.
Yeah. Good DM.
And I was like, yeah,
I'm not surprised.
Apparently, I'm not bad at that. So I was like, but
meanwhile, you're like,
I think your usual style is improv heavy enough that having to improvise a little bit more than usual isn't too difficult.
And then it's also kind of fun because whenever I design a dungeon and for some reason the player character is circumvented, I can just like be like, okay, next time I need a dungeon, it's already ready. That works too. Because you guys completely bypassed whatever content I had prepared, and I was just like, I rewrote a couple of things and made it the next session. I'm like, all right. And that's another kind of thing that I think is in the favor of not bothering too much to worry about all of the minutiae mechanically. Because as long as I've got these guys,
sure,
I can still get you to the dungeon, regardless of where the dungeon technically is in the world. Somehow, eventually, you guys will go to a dungeon, because that's how I make my campaigns. Sorry. Not sorry.
Yeah, there's like DMing the way with it, too. Like, I could think of my good bud, Mr. Greg H., and he is kind of like giving us the option, a bit more in layman's terms too, of like, hey, you guys can go to the Underdark and do this here because of like this thing that you guys have heard about, or like you can go out to this island here where there are, these Triton folks, or this group that's happening here and this. You've heard whispers of this, or you've, encountered these creatures, and so has reached out to you about this. But, the pressure isn't really there. The sandbox of it makes it kind of open, whereas like we can make a decision as the party, and then he can kind of like scope towards that, where he has both planned, but like Underdark or Triton, whatever happens, happens. It's not like, you chose Underdark, but haha, like a wizard showed up and transported you to the Triton people.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I'd plan 6 more things. That's just me. So if you want to go to the Ganassi area, whatever happens. There's reasoning for both. Yeah. I think. I like planning. I like over planning.
Any more thoughts on this table topic, or shall we move on to video games?
Again, I generally run a game systems that are mechanically much more simple, and as a result, when I have to come up with like abilities that interact with the mechanics, they tend to take a lot less thought. So I have a lot more freedom in coming up with generally like unique things. So I do prefer to handcraft stuff when I'm running those games, as opposed to your Pathfinders and your 3.5s or whatever. or your 5th editions even.
I do have one last point to add. If you're all set, there are times where it's like you want to be able to like plan ahead and have all these things like developed and thought of, but when it comes down to actually having like an encounter, you want to be able to have your characters lined out where it's like, okay, like your party is fighting this, and you have like phases or you have things set up where it's like, oh, the party steamrolled those guys, but like, wait, reinforcements happened because they did this before. You don't want to be spending a lot of time being like, oh, man, yeah, you know what though, that should have been like, these guys had these cold spells that showed up, so like, let me go to fighter number 5 that had this, and then go to Mambo number 5 that did this, a little bit of Rita in my life. You want to be able to like do that quickly enough in the sphere of, you know, like playing a game where you don't want load screens. You don't want personal load screens where you as the DM are like fumbling through notes to kind of figure things out, where it's like, of course the encounter's starting and this man rolls out and there's 5 skeletons here, and you figure out the skeletons as everyone's rolling for initiative, like things like that. You have skeletons that rise up, and you have skeletons that are like covered in moss because they're in a swamp, and then you realize that it's like, shoot, you know what, I actually wanted my evil druid to be here, so like I'm gonna have him come through and have a dialogue bit with the other druid and stuff like that.
So
you adapt.
And we're pretty deep into the weeds here, but I think there's something to be said for improvising. You also need to...
You need to back it up, right?
Well, no, that's not what I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
What I was going to say is, with the improvisation, when you come up with things, you need to take care to not just be improvising, extra stuff in response to what the players did, in response to their choices, because that can negate agency.
Yeah.
You need to be. I guess you need to be careful about how you do that.
Yeah, like, and just to like piggyback on that real quick without diving in for another hour, this is one of those moments where it depends, but I've prepared on where it depends. If you have like 2 druids and a paladin and a warlock in your party, you already have things that are kind of like planned with them, whether it be loot, whether it be like important characters to their backstory, important events, important factions, things of that nature. So like if you're going into an encounter and it's, you have your 2 druids that are there, and you have like a druid of their conclave that's like corrupt because of something, you've planned that. It's not like, oh shoot, no, the warlock, it was this guy, it was Johnny. Johnny's evil guy. Yeah, he was here. Johnny summoned all these skeletons. Yeah, that's who's evil Johnny. You're prepped.
And I feel like this would be something I'd want to get into the weeds with you later at another time, because I feel like we have some things that we do in common, and some things that our personal styles would be completely at odds with. But we're already 2 hours in, so we might want to.
That's okay.
Want to cut it off and move to the video game topic, Sean?
Yeah. If everybody's like good enough.
Good. And
I'd like to move to another beer,
I'm going to do that
too.
as well. So, while Kevin and I get another beer, Chris, that means you have to entertain everybody by explaining exactly what the hell you're doing in your video game.
All right, the floor is yours.
So this is Noida, a pixel sandbox simulator roguelike hell machine. You can think of it as a cross between Spelunky, some of those physics simulation tools on the internet around from like the early 2010s or whatever, and cock and ball torture. We have issues with the game. The game will kill you out of nowhere randomly. It is really fun despite this, because it's a game that has secrets piled upon secrets, systems that you can exploit to your benefit, rewards in-depth understanding, taking things slowly and carefully, building wands with, say, this assortment of spells you see next to me, and just really investing in the game and learning from your failures of each iteration. Right now, I'm stronger than I would be for one of my normal runs, but I am weaker than like your really overpowered ones, because I only have 145 HP. You start with 100. I have seen people who have had runs with 6,000 HP or more, and that's due to just understanding the game better, knowing where to look for things, knowing enemy behaviors, knowing how to dodge things, knowing where the secrets are, managing to turn various environmental interactions into major advantages.
This game reminds me a lot of Risk of Rain.
I never played Risk of Rain, but my understanding was Risk of Rain had like that time. The time limit was like a big deal.
Yeah, the timer is like huge, and like if you want to advance through it well and like scale up to the game, you have to do things like quickly.
It's hard to use the bottle opener on this hat while I'm wearing it. But I got
would
it.
Imagine. And I would also imagine that
I'll drink to that.
Yeah.
With the session.
All right. I got me a Angry Orchard, fairly popular hard cider out here. It's in the front of my fridge, so I went with it. These are pretty good. I like Angry Orchard.
Same here.
Pretty well as hard ciders go. It's not my favorite, but
which flavor there?
Crisp apple. Actually,
apple?
Crisp apple. Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, I like this one pretty well. I feel like I've had this one before, but now that I'm having it, I feel like I like it better than I did last time.
It might be the other
That might
booze.
be. It's because I'm used to drinking haggis.
Or the hag.
I'm just like, after drinking haggis and Red Bull, everything is good. But yeah, this is...
Having some Red Bull. Oh boy.
Guess I'll take never skip.
I am a grown-ass man, and I just fucking love apple juice. And this is just hard apple juice. So, I'm okay with that. I really like Woodchuck hard cider. It's my favorite. But Angry Orchard is a pretty good go-to.
That is
I don't know, hard ciders. There is a local Long Island cider house that has like 20 ciders on tap at a time. I haven't been there in a while for the way the world is, but when I went there, it's the only time I'd have a cider. But they were good. They were good ciders. And all different fruits, too. You have blueberry, you have strawberry, all the likes.
There's a place out here in Colorado called Wild Cider that makes some pretty good different kinds. I think they have a blueberry one. They have a pineapple one that I like pretty well that I get every now and then. It's on tap at one of my local breweries.
Oh, they skip up like that.
And they have I feel like they have... I'm trying to think of what else they have. They have a good selection of different ciders, and they're really good.
We're in vineyard country here on the island, so it's like we got the grapes of wrath going on.
All right, so our video game topic this week is customizable characters in games. How much is too much customization, and does the genre influence that answer? Because I feel like there are particular genres where customization of the character is like ridiculous, and there are genres of the where customization is basically nothing. Like your average shooter, you probably have no customization, if any. You might have a tiny bit. Like you pick what weapon upgrades you get first, right? But then you get into, Elder Scrolls and you're customizing your look and individual stats and all that. And then you get into Fire Emblem and it's like the newer Fire Emblem games are, especially Three Houses, is just insane on customization of like you can train particular stats for particular characters to basically shoehorn any character you want into any class that you want. And so there's a lot of there's a lot of different ways that different games go with it. So what do you guys think? Is there too much customization in some games?
Yes. In terms of statistics and like the way you could build out a character, yes. And I do think it also depends on genre. Sorry, I'm going to be like really like loose here. And I have a few examples. I love the concept of like your character in the Elder Scrolls Oblivion or any Elder Scrolls game like Skyrim. You design this character and you spend all this time being like, what does prisoner look like? And then you forget to change the name, so you're prisoner the entire game. My buddy did that, and my buddy also, the same friend, designed his character. Sorry, Nick. And he built this whole character out, and then like he played the game for like a week, and he's like, "I love this game. It's so cool." Like, yeah, Dark Brother did this quest, and I went over for like the first time seeing him play the game after he bought it, and I was like, your hair is like bright green. Like, do you know that your guy looks like the Joker? And he's like, no, it's brown. Like, it's brown. I'm like, no, like up this on your TV or play it at my house. Like, your hair is green. And he's like, oh shoot, like my hair is green. Can I go like get it changed? I'm like, nah, this game is from 2005. You can't do that. In terms of statistics, if a game does it really well, I think it's great. If it's overwhelming and the systems are like too complicated with it, it hurts.
Yeah.
I played Final Fantasy X and I got to the skill tree and I was like, this sucks. I can't stand this. And I stopped playing that game for other reasons. But I love Path of Exile, and I love the way that like a build for an action RPG character can be customized in such an awesome way and played to like build, not necessarily so much like what color is my hair and what does my armor look like and what does all this matter. That stuff for me, like, I don't really care. In some games I really do care. Like you mentioned Fire Emblem as a game that has a lot of customization, and I think the opposite. I can't choose what Byleth looks like. I'm a little bit shoehorned into like
for the look of them. You don't get to choose at all, but that's one where like the stats of it. Like I saw somebody who did a playthrough where literally they just made everybody Wyvern Knights, and you can do that, and that's a point in its favor and a point against it, kind of. As a longtime Fire Emblem fan, I actually think it's like I feel like it's unnecessary in how much it adds to the customization. Because, like, in previous Fire Emblem games, I've had very little customization, where it's pretty much like, you get what you get, and then that's it. And in some games, it's like, they add an inkling, where it's like, okay, when you get to level 10, you can use a Master Seal, and you can choose between 2 or 3 classes that you level up into. Okay, that's kind of cool. And that's kind of where I kind of want Fire Emblem customization to end.
I think Three Houses did it kind of
that way. It did, but I don't know, I feel like Fire Emblem Three Houses...
I didn't get that far.
I feel like Three Houses pushed it a little too far. Because at the end of the day, like, what class they start as has basically no bearing on anything. Because you can literally just shoehorn them into anything that you want to. And I feel like also, by the end of the game, it feels like busy work to micromanage all of their skills. And it's super weird too, because you have the option of like auto level up, and then you don't have to worry about it. But as the type of
but they don't as the
type of gamer I am, I'm like, I feel like if I auto level up,
The
I'm
computer's idiots.
like keeping
You're
myself
not doing it
away
right.
from the maximum potential, right? Something like that. And it's like I feel
Yeah.
obligated because I have the option of micromanaging that I have to micromanage it, if that makes sense. And it's like it's not a
Yes.
bad system, but I feel like what Fire Emblem is to me, I feel like is all about the story and the characters and their individual interactions with each other. And the amount of
Yeah.
customization and micromanagement just kind of detracts from that. It distracts you from the reason I am
Mm.
into Fire Emblem.
So this is interesting, and I don't want this to turn into like a 4-hour Fire Emblem debate, but or maybe you do. If you do, I'm down for it. I've played Fire Emblem since Fire
Okay.
Emblem Awakening, so I'm relatively new in terms of the series. Um, but I think a lot of players started with Awakening, and
Yeah.
I'm one of those. Coming from Awakening and going to Three Houses, I think Three Houses does a lot of things that I wish I could have done
Okay.
in Awakening, and I love it for that. There's some things with Awakening too that I wish could have been done a bit more in Three Houses. But at the end of the day, I enjoyed the gameplay loop of
Chris
what
died.
happened
Everybody
there?
drink.
Explosions.
I got so okay. If I remember correctly, that enemy summons a cloud. That cloud sits around for a few seconds before blasting out a lightning bolt.
Boom.
So I got struck by a lightning bolt and was momentarily confused.
Bolted for 3.
Yeah. So I'm
More like
I guess I'm
300.
coming from a little bit of a
Fire
different
Emblem.
Fire Emblem background because I played Awakening. I loved Awakening, but I started in the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblems because that was the first time that Americans were really
Yeah.
given access to them. Because actually, my first
after,
my
like,
first
Melee.
exposure, I was going to say, was Super Smash Brothers Melee,
Marth
and I
and
was
Roy.
like, oh, Marth and Roy, they're super cool, fun to play with, and I was interested immediately
Yes.
in what they came from, but it was Japan only. And so when the first Game Boy
Yeah.
Advance Fire Emblem came out, I ate it up, which is super hilarious because before that point, I really hated tactical anything. Like if it's got tactics at all, I'm just not even gonna play it. Don't care. But I was like, whatever.
care,
Roy
give me,
and
like,
Marth
the
were cool
action.
enough that I'll give it a chance. And actually, it ended up being first of all, my favorite tactical game series of all time, and second of all, kind of showed me that
Mine too.
even though it's not a genre I'm generally into, there can be exceptions, and I thought that was really cool of it. So I got into it at that point, and in the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblems, everything was just a lot more simple. Like I said, there was basically no customization at all. It was like you got your
you're
class,
pretty
and
built
you
on
can
the
choose
path of
when
your
to use your
character.
master seal, and that's basically the only customization you have, if you can even call that customization. Because
Yeah,
basically,
it made it a little extra hard. It was like Pokemon when you didn't know when to
right,
evolve
yeah.
them. And as a kid, you're like, I just want to use Earthquake on everybody. But like, ooh, I'm going to level my Nidoking to level 54. That way when I evolve him from that, then he's going to know Earthquake and Mega Horn. And it's like, what 10-year-old kid's going to care about that, you know? And I've been a 10-year-old kid for the past 20 years.
Yeah, so I kind of watched Fire Emblem add more customization here and there because I think because
Makes it
I
easier
think
for us
in
10-year-olds.
Path of Radiance was the first one where when you leveled up and used a Master Seal,
That's weird.
it's the GameCube one. There was a Wii sequel called Radiant Dawn.
Yes, I
Yeah.
played the GameCube one. I lost Soren very quickly.
I lost Soren very quickly my first time too. I'm playing through again because I found my old copy and I was like, all right.
I can't play it anymore. Oh yes, that's it. That game is like $100
Actually, I was
now,
looking
right?
it up when I found because actually oddly enough, I started looking up all my GameCube games because I was looking around and I couldn't find my copy of Ocarina of Time Master Quest for GameCube, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll just
Oh
buy
yeah, I
another
have
one,
that
because I
here.
remember when I bought mine, it was like $20. It was like nothing. And I looked it up, and it's
Yeah,
like
not anymore.
150 for Master Quest or something. And I was like, I wonder if any of my other old
Yeah.
GameCube games are like expensive. And I looked them up, and my Fire Emblem Path of Radiance is actually the most expensive game in my video game collection. It lists around $300. There you go.
I think I still have a copy of Path of Radiance sitting around here somewhere.
Yeah, definitely find that if you can, because even if you're not going to play it, like you can turn a decent profit off of that. But yeah, I was super excited, and I tried it out again.
I just
and
have a fat stack of Zelda right here.
There you go. I got
Link's crossbow
Oh,
training.
you got the full case version of that. I only got the.
It's printed on just
is
over
it?
another
Okay.
Wii game.
I guess that makes sense. I was like, I didn't.
I think they only gave you this. In
Yeah,
like,
mine's.
this like dinky little case.
Yeah,
like a
mine's
jewel
mine's
case.
like that. So that's what I was like. I was like, oh, I didn't know they made a full case for that. That's cool.
Nah, they just did a jewel case.
Because that's how I got mine. Because it
I
was
have
the
2 Wii U Twilight Princess copies. I bought one for the ZD Marathon, and then I thought someone stole it, and I found it in my parents' house years later.
Nice.
I don't know what this thing does nowadays.
I'm not sure how much
Collector's
that. I looked that up. I feel like it was a decent price too, because that's my go-to copy of Ocarina of Time.
Probably. It's a terrible copy of Majora's Mask.
it?
I'll tell you that. Yeah, it's buggy. I had a crash on me in Mississippi.
Because I never played the N64 version, so I guess I didn't know what what I was missing. I never really ran into any major issues though on the GameCube.
I did later on. Stone Tower, it kind of messes you up.
Stone Tower is kind of where I stopped. That's one of these unfortunate things on my list of Zelda games I've never beat is literally actually just Majora's Mask and there's a Ego. Zelda 2,
Zelda 2.
That's
Oh yeah, I just played Zelda 2 recently. This is Dynasty Warriors 2.
Okay.
I was just showing off. Look at that back.
Yeah.
That PS1,
Remember the PS1
game.
games?
Look at that right there. Nice and blue. This game is beat to something.
Yeah. But yeah, in Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, I think it was the first Fire Emblem game where when you used a Master Seal, you could pick one of 2 classes. Like if you're a Cavalier, you can upgrade into a Paladin, or you can go into Great Knight, so you get like extra defense or
like
stuff.
A bow
yeah,
knight.
something like that. And I think that was it. It might have been Radiant Dawn that added that, something like that. But it was. Yeah, it was one of those, and it's like adding just a little bit of customization. And so, coming from where I was with no customization and just like kind of dealing with what you get with stat upgrades and all that, it's like now I feel like 3 houses is a little overwhelming, and it's just like I kind of just want to go back to the old days where you could just, do the tactics and fight the bad guys and get the badass, character progression and all that's going on. Because really what I really keeps drawing me back to Fire Emblem is the support system and, finding all these little details between this character and that character after you get their support leveled up all the way and that kind of thing.
Shipping all your characters.
It's really a character-based game for me, even more than it is a tactics-based game for me. Because like I said, I'm not a big fan of tactics games. And I like the tactical gameplay in Fire Emblem, okay? But what I'm really there for is the characters and their growth with each other along the journey. And so I feel like from where I've come from, 3 Houses feels like it's adding too much fluff for the sake of customization.
I can see that. I personally I like the being like you're the professor to these students. and being able to kind of like guide things certain ways. It took me a little bit to figure that out, and I didn't like it. I think if it were a bit simpler and I was like, you like to fly, I'm going to build you towards a flyer. Oh, you like spears, I will build you towards a flyer with spears. You are a falcon knight. Like, congrats. You enjoy that. I also like the ability to be like, maybe you have some magical skills. Like, we can build you towards that. That would be great, too. Only until you really, like, and I did this, I dived onto this dirty place called the internet, where you could, like, figure out a little bit more about, like, build growth and, like, optimal things. And I was like, why does... dang, I forget what his name is. He is, like, I think his name is, like, Cyrus or something. He has, like, aquamarine blue hair. He's part of the, Black Eagles house
club,
and like I just pretty much googled like, why does this guy suck with this, and like the stats for him were like he just kind of sucked. And you have those Fire Emblem characters that just sort of like are not the best, and I was like putting a lot of stuff into this guy and he just sort of stunk. And it's like, if I weren't building towards his faith, I might have just built him towards this, and I would have been happier with him as, like, a character. Instead, I just opted to have someone else be on my team, and I was okay with it. I don't know. I like it to a limit. If I have to Google a bunch of stuff and look at, like, optimal ways to, like, play a game normally, then I'm like, not so much. But if I can have like a hand in doing like what my team or my character is doing, I enjoy it to a limit. I think of character customization, and one of my thoughts goes towards Champions Online. Nice old MMO where you played a superhero character with super abilities. I played as Terrible Man, a character that I customized the bejesus out of, who was a character that had a lightning emblem crest with super speed and fire powers. Why did he have a lightning across him? I don't know. He was terrible, man. He was terrible. We did some like role play, like MMO superhero characters, and it was a good time. But in terms of like playing a character, I think that was more along the lines of like customizing the looks and appearance of your character. I think I value that a bit more sometimes.
Which is funny because that's actually based off of the hero system, the Champions MMO. And you would think that the character customization on that would be top.
Yeah, because hero system as tabletop system is actually... Cool. We've talked about it before. It's one of the most customizable systems, like almost to a fault, because that's one of those things that I thought might come up in our table topic is like when you're one of the biggest complaints that our group had for that was when you're creating like the game as a GM, if you spend time to literally create every character, you will like just spend hours and hours customizing it because it's such a complex, intricate system. And to its benefit, it can create literally anything that we've ever tried to create. But to its detriment, it takes a long time to create even simple things. So...
Yeah.
Well, I made Terrible Man, and he was terrible.
Nice.
But he was great.
Yeah, doing the aesthetics, I think, is almost a different kind of a customization, but it definitely does kind of relate here, and it is part of what I was trying to bring up when I picked this topic. Especially, like, you were talking about somebody that... like went way in depth into his character creation in Skyrim, and I think that's so weird because like it's a first person game. You never see yourself. right?
Yeah.
And
But you
even
know what? I did the same
even
dang thing.
like if you are playing in third person, you're wearing armor and a helmet most of the time, right? You're not gonna
Yeah.
actually see what you
But I
like.
always picked Imperial, and I always did
I'm a Nord
this,
sword.
and made my guy look this way.
The only time I did a character that wasn't a Nord with a two-handed sword was on the Switch version where I could get the Master Sword. So I'm like, all right, I'm not a Nord sword. I'm a Nord sword and board.
Just the
It
Nord
works.
sword and board.
Yeah.
Hylian shield.
It was awesome. I just scanned
I played
amiibos until I
Imperial,
got it.
like,
I was just like, all
by...
right, I have enough amiibos. I can sit here. I just scanned in, and it was funny because I literally did it in the very first room that I was in when you can take control of yourself in Skyrim, and I got myself stuck because I
Oh,
spawned so
yeah.
many treasure chests in there, and I couldn't get out.
Hmm,
So I had to save and quit
that
so
is
that the
funny.
treasure chests would despawn.
I had this happen to me in Skyrim where I spawned and the game just would like play through the cutscene of you like, oh, you're the prisoner, oh, we're the Nords, we're gonna kill you, and Alduin doesn't show up, or no dragons show up at the beginning, so it's like they're ready to execute you, and the whole day-night cycle just keeps going and going and going. So I don't know what happened with my game. It was glitched out on my PC. People told me uninstall mods, and I was like, I don't have any
Mm-hmm.
mods installed. I ended up installing one to start me somewhere else. That way I could actually play the game. But I go through the whole character customization. I'd sit through the cart ride to death,
Mm-hmm.
only to realize it was the cart ride to purgatory. And I got a little like, I don't know, apathetic towards designing my character for the game because I knew it didn't mean anything because I would end up just sitting and standing there and waiting to die. I remember putting the game on, going to a friend's house, hanging out there for like, 5 or 6 hours, and then like coming home at the end of the night. And like I came back and I'm like, I'm still not ready to die because this game is just frozen. It was terrible. And I just, I don't know. I downloaded that mod and I was just ready to like start the game up in another place. I could finally do my character customization. I've yet to reinstall Skyrim on this PC because I knew that it would like not
Mm-hmm.
want to work here. And I don't know why. Good times.
Apparently, you should have played it on Xbox 360. Oh yeah.
I did.
Okay.
I beat it on there too. Yeah, I played through the whole dang game.
So it's just the PC version.
I've played. I have
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of hours in that game.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I gave it like one
Same with
playthrough.
Oblivion.
So another thing that I think is kind of related to this that we can kind of bring back to Skyrim. One of the things I think it did pretty well is skill trees. Because it's like you can kind of look through. There's a bunch of skill trees, but
A little bit.
what I
Yeah.
liked about Skyrim is you pretty much had
Better
to
than Oblivion.
like look at the skill trees for the handful of skills that you really liked, and you could just ignore the other ones. It didn't matter. It's just like, okay, so that I thought was a point in its
Yeah.
favor, whereas other games with skill trees are just really overwhelming and like pointlessly overwhelming. Because you were talking about Final
Yeah.
Fantasy X, was it? With a skill tree? I didn't play that one,
Yeah,
but
and
I
I
played
didn't
Final
get much
Fantasy
further than the skill
15
tree.
last year because it was on Game Pass for a while. I think Final Fantasy 15 is still on Game Pass. I'm not sure.
Oh
But
God.
Oh boy, it's
yeah,
it's
careful
magma
there.
worm.
If Chris dies, we have to drink. But yeah, it was.
What happens if the worm dies?
I might get a health
Cool.
up from him.
Do we have
Sure.
to drink?
Celebratory drink if Chris kills the worm, but it's a depressed drink if Chris dies to the worm.
Hey, worm.
All right,
He's dead. No health up. though.
hooray! But yeah, one of the things that turned me off of Final Fantasy 15 was that, like, first of all, you have a skill tree, like a few separate skill trees for all of your characters. You start with a party of 4 characters,
that's
and
annoying.
you get like 1 point, and like before I could even decide where to spend the point, I had to look through the skill trees of all 4 characters to figure out like where I wanted to put it. And
You're
it
like,
was
what do you
just
wanna
like
do?
I also feel like it really had a like possibly the shittiest introduction ever to those 4 characters, because it's like it gives you kind of the general story of Noctis, who's kind of the main character of Final Fantasy 15, and then the other 3 guys are just like his frat brothers or something. It's just like, why are these guys here?
Boy band.
Right? It's like, I feel like you're expected to know why they're there, even though you have no possible way of knowing why they're there.
Yeah, to watch the movie.
The story just kind of pretends you already know who they are. And I'm like, this is... So... yeah.
Oh boy, I could go deep into another Square Enix game, The Last Remnant. Have either of you played that game before?
I'm trying to think of... Is that...
It was like a non-Final Fantasy Final Fantasy game that like Square Enix made to kind of like dive into the West. And it just does a lot of things like very wrong.
I feel like I saw like that game on game store shelves all the time and thought about it. But I feel like I never got it.
I bought it on 360. It was weird, and I didn't like it, and I wrote a really bad review on it in like 2010. And then I bought it on PC again and played it there. What makes the customization of that like even worse, and I'm not going to dive into this too far, but just enough to talk about customization. What happens with your characters is as you use the certain abilities and moves that you learn throughout the game, the more inclined your character becomes to use those. So if you're using hex spells versus magic spells versus physical, your character will start to use those more often in combat. What happens is you end up with your character being able to learn like a smorgasbord of like 15 different items, with certain equip items showing up at like random points of the game where like if your character opts to not use a certain item, your main character, then like another party character might want to equip that item or they might not. And there's no rhyme or reason unless you like Google it or like go on the wiki, or like you can miss out on quests for your character customization because you didn't unlock another character that would give you a remnant that would like get towards like you using like an axe instead of a sword that gave you an ability to do this. It's overly complicated and frustrating. It's the worst way to do a video game. Terrible. But if you used those skills more, they popped up more often in combat, which sounds like a pretty sweet deal. Of course, I want to use hexes. They were pretty great. I'd like to use those more. Let me use hexes. And then you go in combat and you're like, oh, hex shows up as an ability. And then you realize that like leveling that up through fighting with characters wasn't really as good as just using spells. And you wish you could go back to using spells, but you can't. Because you're so inclined towards using hexes, and the game is like, well, I mean, you wanted to use them, so like, here you go. There's ways to fix some of those things in the PC version, but there's like detriments to like leveling your character up. It's weird. It's odd. Don't play The Last Remnant. That's kind of where I'm going.
All right, now I know.
Knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
Knowing half the battle.
Chris knows half the battle.
So, I also have opinions on this.
Then speak up.
Yeah. And I'm going to present them with a visual aid here.
Aids.
So I feel like the kind of customization you are seeing in front of you here, these 3 perks I can choose from, is
more blood.
Kind of, yeah, there's more blood, there's projectile, 3 randomly chosen perks that the game happened to throw at me. I feel like this is how you should approach customization in a game like a roguelike. Because with the permanent death, it gives you few enough choices to avoid choice paralysis, but it gives you choices and there's meaningful differences between all of these. Like, this will give me more blood, which can be both good and bad. I can, like, flood the area with blood. This isn't terribly useful, and this can kill a lot of enemies, but can also trap me and kill me pretty easily. So I feel like these kind of customization choices where you're only choosing between a few things at any given time is a good way to cut down on cognitive
So
load.
it's somewhat like in Crypt of
Like,
the...
imagine if each of these gave you a tree to go towards.
There's no
It'd
tree.
be overwhelming. Yeah, I know. It'd be nuts.
So it's somewhat like Crypt of the Necrodancer, where like you go to the store and you have so many gold from however much you've gathered since last time you died, and you can get like a better torch or a good weapon, but it'll break, or a third item of some... It's like the store always has 3 totally different items, and they're totally different kinds of uses. Something like that. Because you played Crypt of the Necrodancer.
Yes. Yeah, I like that as a customization strategy, at least for mechanical customization.
I kind of get that in that kind of procedurally generated thing. I do kind of like the way that Cadence of Hyrule kind of took it, because the original Crypt of the Necrodancer kind of had, like, it had that, which was cool for what it was, but at the same time, it's like every now and then you're just like, I wish I got better permanent upgrades. I think because that's kind of a problem, I guess, maybe with just roguelikes in general. I haven't played like hardly any roguelikes, so I'm kind of coming from a narrow field of vision here, but in Crypt of the Necrodancer, I felt like all of the upgrades you get are so limited that it's like by the next time you die, which will inevitably happen because it's a roguelike, it's gone. So it at that point, it kind of...
Yeah, that may be a bit more unique.
Yeah, at that point, it kind of, like, unlegitimizes the customization, I feel like. It's like, why even bother, almost, at a certain point, depending on, like if you come into the store, and you have a buttload of gold, and you can buy anything you want, but you only got 1, like, HP left, and you're probably gonna die no matter what you buy, it's like, who even cares? So I feel like that's a little bit of a double-edged sword there. And I feel like Crypt of the Necrodancer could have benefited from more permanent upgrades, or maybe just a little easier. Like if they put a little more gems in, which Cadence of Hyrule did. And so that's part of why I like Cadence of Hyrule better, is that you just got a little more gems throughout the levels, so you could get the permanent upgrades easier. Because... the temporary upgrades, I think,
game a bit more accessible too.
Yeah, I think so. Partially, maybe just because it's working with the Zelda team and
Zelda
such.
fans want to play it. Yeah. Like speaking from a player's perspective that has done, like I've played Risk of Rain since before it was released, early access, into like Risk of Rain 2, but less so. Roguelike games have taken like an interesting division where like you have the games that are like your pure roguelikes that like you die and you die. You're the hardcore players. You die, you lose all your stuff, you finish, and that's it. There's some other games that like Risk of Rain and Risk of Rain 2. Really, actually, Risk of Rain 2 does this, where you have currency or items or things that could carry over into another game. So you have certain like tokens that you unlock throughout Risk of Rain 2 that you could use to cash in on further playthroughs. That could give you like more risk or reward kind of items, where it's like you lose all of your health, but you have a shield now, and the shield is a lot better than what your health would have been. Things of that nature. And that helps further because they balance it around like the rest of the mechanics of the game. That I think helps further like your investment as a player to be like, all right, well, I died on my run, but I made it to round 10, so I got these coins, so I can use that in my next run. Okay, cool. Some games do that really well. Other games do it well to the point where it's like you die and you just you've died, and you need to like reacquire those items, and like the struggle of getting that is balanced among the game. There's an ebb and flow to it. I think some of these games are a bit more built towards specific folks that like enjoy this kind of game. I think it leads towards a game where there's a lot of challenge and there's a lot of variety, and that adds to replayability. Where it's like, the level may be the same layout, but the items you get are completely different, and that may lead to a really fun experience where it's like, hey, this kind of thing happened each time, like where like the boss happened, but I triggered it from different ways, sort of like a Magic game in a way, where it's like you play with the same deck, but the layout of the game and the way that you interact with your opponent, which is the game in this perspective, is completely different each time, and those are the moments that keep me as a gamer coming back.
Yeah.
It's always going to tie back to Magic.
So the other thing I was going to say about this is that this system of customization, the random selection, the random choice of selection, is entirely appropriate for roguelikes, and it's not entirely appropriate for other genres of games.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like building a character in more CRPG type games, but I don't like it when I have to weigh 300 different options that may or may not work out for my build, and some of them might just be strictly worse than other options. They might just be like trap options, which is a problem in 3.5 as well. And some of these tabletop games we love so much.
Not if you're playing for flavor.
No, it's a problem even then.
Yeah.
There's no because there's no correction mechanism, and
that's when you bribe your GM with different beers in the local area. Then they correct your stats for your character, or items find their way into your inventory. But no, you're correct in saying that.
Yeah, it's
I trade you a deck of many things for a Guinness.
Yeah. All right.
I would not take that trade. That is a
Lunch
trade.
Yeah. All right. Is there any final thoughts we have on this or video game topic? As I misspoke, we have to drink again. But any last thoughts here before we end the podcast for tonight?
Go out and give Risk of Rain a try. If you've enjoyed our roguelike discussion, and give this game a try too.
Yeah.
I knew I was gonna die. I just didn't know when.
The Necrodancer. Now that I'm thinking about it, that game was awesome, and I don't know. As soon as I got Cadence of Hyrule, I was just like I completely forgot it existed. I guess.
I have one final thought on customization. I feel like I've spoken up very little during this, but it's any game that lets you customize your character's appearance. The more appearance customization you can do, the better. I think I like
even
that.
Even in a game where you don't see yourself like Skyrim.
Even in a game where you don't see yourself like Skyrim, like if I can play like like a bald dude with a unibrow. It gives me joy just to know that that's what he looks like when he talks to people, and that's what those other NPCs are seeing.
Nice. That's one thing I kind of thought about that we
Even
didn't
when
really
they're
bring
like-
up was like the ridiculously specific appearance customization. Like particularly in some of the Xbox 360 generation wrestling games. Like in the
Oh my gosh, I used to make the freakiest things
yeah,
to play online.
like in that generation of like the WWF games and stuff like that, it was just like it was absurd how much you could do. You could like have them hold any number of items. You could customize like the individual X, Y, and Z axis of every single part of their body, like
Everything.
their
You
bicep
have one
and
eyebrow
their
that moves all the way up.
forearm and both of their and it's like each individual thing you could customize exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like it was cool because you could do that, but at the same time sometimes it was just tedious to just make a guy.
Yeah, I have a few buddies that would make like every like potential wrestler that wasn't in the game. Like, you know, Dude Love wasn't in the game, but they'd make like Dude Love out of like all the things available to them, and it's like, yeah, that looks like him. Like, you know, it looks like Mick Foley. And then they'd have like him, and they'd clone him, and then like dress him up as Mick Foley and change him a bit. It's
Nice.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Absolutely nuts.
So Chris, as somebody who's played Cyberpunk, how do you feel about customization of the genitals? Is that something that we really need?
It's not. I've said this in an earlier podcast, and I've complained about this often. It's not detailed. There's not enough genital customization. The genital customization was oversold.
Right. So if you could customize the individual X, Y, and Z axis of both of your breasts and your penis, would that be better?
Yes. I would take if you were given more options for what to do. Like, I'm just saying.
This is starting to sound like a Rick and Morty episode I've watched.
I'll complain about this more at the end of the podcast because it's more appropriate for the end of the podcast. I'm saying I'm disappointed.
Nice.
And what was it? One last thing. I also liked how Divinity Original Sin 2 had like personality tags you could have on your character that would give you additional dialogue options. Just nice little things like that. Because that's also a part of character customization.
I could bury everyone in like 3 hours of why I did not really enjoy Divinity, but I'm gonna save that. We'll talk about this another time. I like the lore of it, but the rest, no thanks.
It's a game I never played. I have to get around to that eventually, or apparently, maybe not.
It's
Maybe
a
not.
good,
I don't know. I might just be a curmudgeon.
it's a good co-op
Okay.
CRPG. They do like the turn-based combat. That is.
Don't play the
kind of
first
my
one.
jam. First one's all. I played a little bit of the first one. I was mostly talking about the second, Divinity 2.
Yeah, second is a bit more better. Some quirks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I think we are wrapping up our video game topics so we can do our shameless plugs and move to our final segment of the podcast, which is where we talk about inane bullshit until somebody says something really awkward and we cut off the podcast. So, as always, I am your host, Sean Michael Patrick Thompson, a.k.a. Spamoman. You can find me on 2guysplayingzelda.com as well as tgpzgaming.com. I have out recently the Two Guys Playing Zelda Awards on twoguysplayingzelda.com. Is our Game of the Year award kind of discussion that a lot of the other TGPZ writers helped me. We all voted together as well as some of the fans in the TGPZ Discord. So that's always a fun place, fun conversation there. And various things. And I also on tgpzgaming.com recently put out a article all about Hellblade, which I streamed a couple of weeks ago, which is really just what I think is one of the most important stepping stones that gaming has taken recently. So check out that if you are interested over there. And we, of course, have our special guest, Mr. Shabazzle himself. Yeah. We didn't expect him,
me,
but he's here.
Kevin O'Rourke. Yeah, he is here. He was the gift that was promised. Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Shabazzle, and I have an Instagram account. I don't really know what it's called. It's like Shabazzle something. Shabazzle16. That probably sounds right.
Look up all the Shabazzles and see
stream,
which one has a picture of him.
Yeah. There was someone who tagged me on Twitter at Shabazzle, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I was hanging out with Shabazzle," and I'm like, "I have no idea who you are," and they were like, "Oh, I tagged you on Instagram," and I'm like, "I don't have Instagram." And then I made an account, and it was some girl. I don't know, it was some person I didn't know.
Was she hot?
But anyways, what do I do? I have a Twitch page. I stream there every so often. I'd like to do that more. Twitch.tv/Shabazzle. There's 2 Z's in Shabazzle in case you were counting. It's fun. Streaming is fun. We just did we played Among Us for the community game night week on our Discord, and I've played Faces of Evil Remastered, the remastered ROM game that came out for the CDI Faces of Evil with Ashley Skip, who's been on this podcast. And it's been fun. We'll probably do one at Gamelon sometime
Is that
soon. I don't
remastered
know when.
just
I don't know how,
available publicly for PC?
Yeah, it's a free download. It's probably been shut down. But if you could find it on the internet, it fixes a lot of the control issues.
That's always been one I've been interested in, but buying a CDI and a copy of that game is more expensive than my curiosity is willing to go. I'm like...
I will say, having played it, I've played it on the CDI, multiple times at the ZD Marathon, and, playing it on those controls and on the hardware, this remastered version does a lot of little things to little quality of life changes that make it a lot better. If you die, you get enough continues to just kind of keep playing. The speed of the game is a lot quicker. The frame rate's a lot nicer and smoother. Link moves faster, and just things are a lot better. It's just nice.
Yeah,
just real
I feel
nice.
like any version of that game would be worth checking out just for curiosity's sake. I've always wanted to check those out, but just as the Zelda fan I am, I'm just even the bad ones I want to play, right?
Yeah, the remastered almost makes it not that bad. It's more of a meme than it is an atrocity. Yeah, if that makes sense.
And it's hard to tell too, because I've heard so many varying things that among people that have actually played them, that apparently considering their CDI games, they're not that bad, because apparently all the rest of the games for CDI were even worse shit. Is what I keep hearing, and I'm just
they're hot garbage.
Wow,
they're they're just difficult on the original hardware, but if you play them and you adjusted the crap factor of the game, then it's a fun romp. It's the equivalent of an okay to bad Super Nintendo game. The best way I could describe it.
And of course, we are always joined by my glorious co-host, because we're still in the plugging our shit section, but we got distracted for a minute, but it's more fun that way. Here's my glorious co-host, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris, Apes Together Strong Audette. Normally I would plug some shit, but Right now, I'm not really feeling it. This GameStop thing is definitely one of the greatest things I have seen, probably in the past 12 months, and I'm enjoying watching it.
Nice. All right, in that case, that moves us on to our final segment of the podcast where we talk about inane bullshit until we say something ridiculously awkward and I cut off the podcast.
So genital customization.
I could have cut it off right there and it might have been hilarious, but I feel like we can get more awkward than that.
It's relevant.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, I'm just like, if they say you're gonna customize your genitals, why just stop at one selection of none vagina or cut or uncut dick? Huh? Why can't you give yourself multiple dicks? Why can't you have one dick and one vagina? Why can't you customize the parameters on that dick so you can have like a little chode thing flopping around there? Why
You're
can't
going to get the XYZ axis on each individual testicle?
Yeah. Why can't I have one super big testicle? Why can't I cosplay as I'm trying to remember the guy's name, that one medieval king who died young, who had one single testicle the size of like an acorn that was black as coal.
Lance Armstrong the Third.
Yeah, I am almost certain that was not his name.
I bought Killer Instinct at GameStop, and it was a really good deal, and it's in a black cartridge.
If this is truly cyberpunk, why can't I
thought that might have trumped it.
Yeah, it's cyberpunk. Like, why can't you have, like, a mechanical dick?
Yeah, well, why can't I get cyberware on my dick? Why
The
can't
government would spy on your dick?
Why can't I install...
You might get malware.
Why can't I install
or the wrong kind of Trojan virus?
Can't I install a taser on my dick to disable people with when they think I'm unarmed?
I really want a game now that you have that where you can just like, oh yeah, I'm unarmed and just like go with them and like go along like they're taking you into custody or something and just like blam, just I shock you with my penis.
Just start golden cutting him.
Yeah, it's I want to call it the money shot. Because it costs a lot of money for every round you fire.
Kind of like how in Zelda 1 you took a rupee every time you used the bow. Is that what you call a money shot? Because you're literally shooting money at people.
Is that just what fires out of